How you guys doing? Yeah, you know we back at it. Episode 5, motherfuckers. Yeah. How you guys doing? Yeah, you know we back at it. Episode 5, motherfuckers. How you guys doing? Yeah, you know we back at it. Episode 5, motherfuckers.
We're here. I must start unmuting people. We're here. I must start unmuting. Oh shit, I can hear myself. Okay, we're going to stop that now. I'm also concerned I'm on the wrong microphone. I sound bad. I sound bad, guys.
Now it should be better. Do I sound normal now? Was I on the wrong microphone all night before? I hope not.
Nope, you're good.
I was all smooth and sexy. The first vibrant.
Yep, all was well.
Right, unmute Sean too. Sorry, Sean, I had you muted. We got Alan, right. Sean, Gabriel in the house.
Oh, Alan Marcus is here?
He's here, lurking.
That makes me very happy inside of my heart.
Oh, I'm still screen sharing. Uh-oh. Here we go. Hey, there we go. All right.
I can't find that cool sweatshirt I was wearing last week, and it keeps me warm because it's cold out here. It's like 36 degrees today. Yeah. was it Idaho?
Wow, it's colder here. Now, I thought that we were live on Weaving Spiders YouTube, but I'm not seeing it there. I tried to do it. Seems that maybe it didn't work. We do our best. So we're on InnerVerse right now. And we're on Rockfin, those two places. We're here to do a flow state. If you're new to flow state, it is a totally improvised hangout with art and reading and some, mild weaving spiders.
Yeah, we try to focus on reading, but sometimes we digress into talking about the reading and or the art and or the random topics that pop up when you allow your mind to move into a flow state.
I got this much to read right now for us today. We're going to read through all these.
I'm sure I got books over here somewhere. I always forget to read. You guys got to prompt me more often, like, Sean, do you have something to read? I always do. I just forget to bring anything.
I got to give you props for back in the day, RX Only Picture Show, episode 33.
Yeah.
The original live stream variety show. That episode of RX Only was epic. Tracy read hilarious and informative stuff, a nice variety while you and Jim did your art.
Yeah,
that was totally like the perfect flow state episode prototype.
Well, I think that was Jim's whole idea. I'm sure was like, because it was his idea to start that thing because he took a college class. I don't know how many times people have heard the lore of this whole concept. In college, Jim took some classes where that's what it was. It was reading and sculpting, and the whole theory is that it activates both sides of your brain at the same time. If you're listening to someone read and you're proactively creating art with your hands or whatever, then it gets the full brain work in it. So they would take turns in class reading aloud like a whole chapter from a book or whatever, and everyone else would sculpt. And so Jim brought that idea to Picture Show, and we did it at least 3 times, maybe 4, but I know we did at least 3 of them. And so the idea that he decided to spin that off, to me, that's what this is another spin-off of Picture Show is this little show. And I love it. Jim's in case you guys didn't notice, Jim's like the most humble creative genius of all time. Like
he is amazing.
Like hangs out on his haunches and has a lot of pressure on him because he's got so many irons in the fire and so many obligations. But
hello, can you help me enter the flow state?
Yeah, Alan, it'll just be a 350.
Okay. Pay now or pay later?
You always got to pay later.
Hey, buddy, I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get everything set up here. I think that's important to the flow state is having the state of mind and the empty spaces available to create the art.
Gesso. Let's put Gesso on a rock.
We need to have we shared that we're live in the Weaving Spiders welcome?
Have not yet. That's part of the
setup.
I will forward that over to Weaving Spiders right now.
I could try to promote
I'll put that right on the channel. I'm trying to do all the things at one time simultaneously.
Yes, that's why the magician card was known as the juggler.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we just had a great vibrant. I'm still pretty stoked after that. I've got my art ready and set up in the other room with the camera on it to switch to, but I thought maybe I'll read first unless Gabriel wants to go first.
After you, brother.
Well, I got to figure out what I'm going to read. I was probably just going to do some bibliomancy from this stack. I'll ask around. The chat can answer too. Would we like some information from holographic culture, which is not going to look right because of my green screen? Holographic Culture by Pierre Sabak. We could start and maybe continue it from week to week, kind of like Rachel was doing with that one story. We could read, I don't know if it's got chapters, but I've got, yeah, I can just keep no, it's got chapters. They're long though. I have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, a popular book in
I read that book.
I've read it once.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, it was kind of what I expected it to be. I know a lot of people really ranted and raved about it, but it's just like a really smooth, encouraging, inspirational hero's journey type story.
What I found interesting was that, well, the book was good. I had heard about it, and then a little while after hearing about it, I decided I would like to read it. And then I was told that when you want to read it, the book will come to you. And that next day, I went on a trip to Chicago to visit a friend. And that friend, when I showed up, she gave me The Alchemist and said, I just finished reading this, and it's a copy that is intended to be just passed to the next person, and it's traveled all around the country, one person to the next after they finished reading it. So I was like, the day I decided I wanted to read it, I got it handed to me.
Same thing happened to me, man. I'm not kidding. Like, I decided that I was going to get over my intentional bias of anything that's popular must suck. I've got that problem sometimes that if everybody's talking about something being good, I just default to like disagreeing without ever being informed. Well, it obviously sucks if all you guys like it.
I love that.
So like the what you'd call, you're not a hater, you're more of a, what's the word? What do they call those fashionable hipster types? Yeah, you're a hipster, Sean.
Well, I don't know, man. That's a hard mantle to wear, hipster.
You're a West Coaster, though.
That's
you
true.
lived in Walla Walla, of all places.
Yeah, the hipsters in Walla Walla, boy, oh boy. But yeah, I guess I just, contrary to a fault sometimes, I probably waited 10 years to watch American Psycho for the same reasons. But when I did finally decide, like, you know what, I probably am going to read that book, The Alchemist. We also went on a trip up to the Oregon, actually to Astoria, which is an amazing little city. And there's plenty to decode there, Gabriel, if you ever want to look at Astoria, Oregon. And the book was on the shelf of the people we were staying with. And so I started reading it and almost finished it. And then I think we actually left and came back and I finished it the next time, or I don't remember, but something weird happened on top of that too. But yeah, it's a good book. And you could definitely bibliomance from it and read good stuff. Whatever you turn to will be good, if you read out of that. Now, wait, where's Rachel? I want to hear the next chapter in our story about the girl that went to Fairyland.
She got invited. She might pop in.
She said she couldn't make it tonight, but
Oh,
you never know. Maybe we'll get lucky. It's a bro fest. Jim's here with that beautiful sculpture.
Yeah, with the Mary Chominko coyote.
I'm feeling like it's ugly right now. Coyote ugly.
It's because at a certain point when you put so much time into a project, it's diminishing returns in the mind of the artist. It's like the longer you put into it, the more you hate it.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, and this isn't the first one Jim's done, so he can have that process continue over numerous editions.
I think it looks good. I want you to hold it up to your camera and I'll full screen you.
Cool, yeah.
Okay, so
hopefully I'll have the head on by the end of
I shared this stuff out on my Facebook and Twitter just to see if we get a little bit of reach. Now I'm just trying to find the actual live broadcast window again. That would be neat.
Reach is fine, but you know what? I'm here for you guys. This is just because I want to hang out.
Just because I just know that some of the people on my lists would like it if they got to see it. And if I find out that I didn't do it, then they might send me a private message like, hey, why didn't you tell us you were on a live stream? Because I don't think of it as often as I should drop it in the Discord too, huh?
Yeah, Adam would be perfect. You know what? I'm a fan of you. I follow you around everything you're in, basically.
Appreciate it.
Let's announce too on Sunday. Sean and Jim are going to be on InnerVerse for a live stream.
Yeah. I'm excited. And I got a buddy I'm trying to butter up for to get him on a weave. He's doing a lot of symbolism on the internet. Symbolic Studies, I think is the name of his channel.
Yeah.
But I was on it. Yeah, Symbolic Studies is a cool cat. I've met him personally. He's a great guy. Him and his wife are both amazing.
Show me the coyote.
Switch. But yeah, he had this idea of the polarity not being solar and lunar, but being solar and polar between the sun and Polaris. And I'd really like it. I think he has some kind of a presentation about it.
maybe not super in depth, but at least, some slides and an outline. And so I was thinking to see if he wants to, I sent him a message to see if he wants to get on a weave. Because I love the idea. It's coming around naturally anyway. Like the Polaris stuff is really coming to the surface. I've seen it 3 or 4 times in the last week. Just people really talking about Polaris. And so, I don't know, maybe the time is right to get dude on and because he found this ancient
It's the
book.
throne. Polaris is the throne. It's the North Star. North is the anagram for throne.
Yeah.
I'm going to mute Jim for background noise.
Yeah, please do.
Just because you got your shop's got a little bit of fuzz to it.
I was
or you can manage your own mutes. But we want to hear you talk. Like if you want to talk, come up and talk. It's just for like when you're not talking.
Yeah, I had to turn off my air compressor to even talk to you guys. So I need it to work, so I'm gonna have to mute it anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure if you turn that air conditioner on, it's gonna be loud.
I'll pop in and talk if I feel the need to or whatever.
All right, we'll do our best to keep you entertained.
I bet I will be entertained the whole time. Love you guys.
Love you, brother.
Love you, Jimmy.
Okay, so the third book option that I could read from to begin is from Strawman Story, the real story of your artificial person. The biggest book on my shelf. It's as big as the Bible, basically.
Nice. Clint Richardson?
Yeah, and actually, I was going to talk to him yesterday, but he opted to push back a week because he has a project he's about to put out. I think it's a 2-parter, 2 videos. Someone just got kind of noisy, but I can't tell where it's coming from. Background noisy. I'm going to start muting people till I figure it out. Oh, it was at Alien Marcus. Anyway, Clint hasn't put anything new out for quite a while, and so I definitely wanted to wait till he had his new videos out that I could watch before we talk next week. So the InnerVerse schedule is Jim and Sean, and then the next one will be Clint returning for the 4th time. But yeah, this is probably what I would pick if I was going to bibliomancy something out of and read for a while. I love the guy.
It was my sound. I had plugged in my USB my USB webcam, and it changed my default microphone to that open USB camera. So how do I get into the flow state when I'm not used to StreamYard and I'm set up for Zoom on another device? It takes a lot of time to learn everything, and then
3-hour sound check.
Yes, all the noise and distortion in the lines and getting everything just to flow beautifully. This is not something that you can just go live and everything works out.
Feels good so far.
For you guys, I'm struggling here. Help me get into the flow state, team.
Well, maybe if I read, it'll get you in the flow state.
I hope so.
All right, somebody pick a number between... Who do I want to pick? I feel like if Jim wasn't all getting ready to start welding, I'd ask him to use his brain horns and pick the number. But I'll have Sean will test you instead. Pick a number between 1 and 1111.
1 and 1111.
Somewhere in between.
127.
127. Yeah, so this book is written without parts or chapters. It's like one continuous.
Clint's book?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
He just goes. It is so well done, though. So I'm going to read from page 127, and I'll read for a while with no real prior knowledge of what's on this page because it's been a while since I read it. Okay. So it looks like, all right. We're going to just start in the middle of this page, and once we get rolling, we'll start to have context and we'll get what we're talking about.
Yeah, you guys I couldn't find you guys. I have so many tabs, it's not even funny.
Oh,
my boy showed me that you could use Google has, like ways to organize tabs into groups. And so now it's even worse. Like I've got buttons that you click and it opens up 30 tabs and I can collapse those down. So, but I'm going to mute myself while you read and start painting this rock into an orange.
Sounds good. All right, page 127, Strawman, The Real Story of Your Artificial Person, a private work by Clint Richardson. You can find this book for free at strawmanstory.info, but I got the physical copy. It is very important to note here that this notion of legal, meaning unnatural or anti-God, equality, is what allows all men in public persona to be judged by all other men in legal persona, acting in juries and as administrative judges at bar. Equality is just another patriotic lie used to cause all men to never be spiritually considered. Only the fiction, the equal legal person or status, is considered. The man follows suit in surety. All straw men are equal in the eyes of the fictional administrative law system, and without the straw man, bond and surety, the man cannot be considered at all. No man should seek to be bound in legal, that is, forced, equality with all others. This is just slavery by another name, for only slaves would seek such a status under a master. Here we can see that even gods may be ruled over by other gods. I think he's saying that because the word God is defined as judge, magistrate, prince, or ruler in one of the definitions. These barons or landlords are only appointed as gods to judge in peerage by a higher god, a higher authority, as the majesty of a king or queen, which is again merely a higher form of fictional godhood. All legal titles impose upon the holder a sort of godship, a vessel, and the power of that ship, as with a citizenship, only exists over those fictional names and titles of artificial persons, places, and things placed under its jurisdiction by another god in its peerage. Even our modern juries are appointed to be temporary gods over other equal citizenships, vessels, acting under the jurisdiction of their lord, a judge, though spiritually none of them should be casting stones in judgment, for none of us stand in innocence. Notice above that a peer is an equal, just as citizens of the United States are in peerage with each other under the equal protection of the law. Equal slaves. But notice also that this equality is only applied to those peers by their appointed rank and station, their false persona, in political or artificial society. It is very important to know here that it is not any living man that is being considered as equal by these creator gods and lords of the legal law, only a fictionally registered and assigned persona or status in legal society, which is fictionally named legal place, a jurisdiction. The surnames are equal, the titles are not. No title is bestowed to any man, only to his fictional persona. And so, a Muslim in citizenship is equal to a Christian in citizenship, and both are equal to an atheist in citizenship. Why is this? As we will see, legal citizenship to the fiction, to that legal government which is opposed to God and nature, regards every public citizenship in abandonment of God, as having no religious tendencies or higher moral law, and as having no private religion. For his God is the legal state, and he worships only publicly in mammon and in false persona of the state, valuing everything he senses only in the artificial estimation, judgment, and valuation of money, including even his own self, his labor, and so too his children. Belief, which means love, leaf is an archaic word for love. Belief in money or love of money is certainly the root of all evil, for evil is only ever that which is artificial. Money is only a representation of debt, a promise to pay, passed from hand to hand, and only debtors in surety bond worship, believe in it, and therefore publicly use it. To be clear, titles don't exist in nature, meaning they are not a creation of the supreme being we call as God, as the creator of all of nature and the universe, and are instead only legal creations of these legal gods. Man is not born in nature with a name or title, or number, or mark. There is no actual equality in nature, and the sexes, for instance, are certainly not in any way equal in their abilities and weaknesses. Equality is not a right in reality. It is the voluntary and highest duty of all men to treat each other as such. The male has not the equal ability to bear children as the female, and so this notion of equality can and only ever will be is a political artificial status of man's law. And as we will uncover, equality is one of the worst aspects of citizenship, for even slaves are considered as equal in their very limited rights. Legal words are generally opposed to their general and spiritual meaning as terms of art, and so equality under man's law is merely a form of building a lower class structure than the false gods or creators of that legal equality. These artificial things, such as legal rights and duties, are only ever the creation of man. They are not of nature. They do not grow on trees. They do not just spontaneously happen. It is this distinction between the supreme being which we call as God and its realm of nature as compared to the false supremacy of these legal gods by respect and consent of men that we must always consider. For again, the law we voluntarily follow expresses the God we have chosen. A man has but two states of being. One is as a man under God, and one as that same man acting in the fictional persona under the legal gods. This is the scriptural choice between God and the god of mammon. The gods of money are the gods of nations. For all internationally considered forms of money are national in their origins. And so the gods of the nations, of the national currency and commerce, are always only idols. And so the persons of men, as artificial creations of these idols, can only ever be considered as recreated false images when compared to man's origin and source in nature, as the creation of that supreme God, the creator of all of nature, and more importantly, of man. It is the use by man in his adultery or false persona of these legal gods, currencies, and credit as the creation and property of the nation, which is legally called as commerce, that allows the creator of that money to be as gods over us. The user of another's property is only ever the subject of its actual owner. The user of another's name, statuses, and titles is only ever the subject of their creator. And every creation has a god, a creator. An agent only ever exists to serve its principal, a servant its master. Man's use of only God's creation of nature makes man a subject only of God, and thus of only the natural, unwritten law. It is only the contracted use and dis-ease of artificial legal persons, places, and things by their authoritative legal names that man becomes the bonded subject of these idols of the nations, those recreators as the gods of their own fiction and artifice. Exodus chapter 23, verses 32 and 33. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in thy land, lest they make thee sin against me. For if thou serve their gods, it will surely be a snare unto thee. You guys cool with me to keep going?
Oh,
That
yeah.
was one page, front and back. Not even a full page front and back, actually. This book is crazy. Look at how small the text is for how fat this book is. It's just something else.
I'll tell you a secret, Chance. I got an idea to do something nice for Clint. I know he won't catch this stream, so we could talk about it real quick. But,
Yeah.
I got this huge stack of paper. I got an archival printer sitting here. I love the idea of taking a long time to build up to figure out how to to print and bind a huge copy of that and send it to him so that, you know, like it's as big as a family Bible bound in wood or something.
That's a great idea.
You know, so that he has like the ultimate copy, because he gave that, it's his gift to the world. I know who Clint is. I've never sent him no messages, I don't think, but I've listened to a lot of his stuff.
Donate money to Clint. He doesn't ask for any money for anything he does.
Yeah, I mean, I need to order a version like you got, because I just got the PDF, but I'd love to print a big book for him.
I'm pretty sure he even just does these at cost. He's an animal. You got, I mean that lovingly, as in he's not not a fictional person.
No,
this is a $40 donation for this giant book. I've paid more for smaller books. I'll say
too.
that.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute again.
That were self-published. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Please keep reading. And I got some
Give me a
books
chance to do
there.
some
I
breathing.
just realized I forgot.
I got some books here, so I'm sure we could work something out here.
Yeah. I'll go for a while longer. If anyone just wants me to stop, they can let me know.
Be Your Own Psychic, The Devil's Dictionary, Solzhenitsyn. So yeah, we could work something out here.
I'm really into the idea of just keeping the reading going with, like, you know, commentary between the passages we read, but
Time for reflection. It's good.
Yeah, that's good. But some of our flow states didn't have a lot of reading, and I really like that aspect.
Me too.
The aspect of the Strawman story by Clint Richardson is a complete flow state. As you mentioned, there's no clear division between sections. It's all a flow state, and it's almost meditative how you can begin to read it and just continue reading, and then you take a break when you feel like you've got enough to chew on.
Yeah. we'll get a little bit more in there to chew on. We just finished up with that Exodus chapter 23, verse 32 and 33, about not serving the gods of other lands. These words have very distinct meanings, which will be further revealed as we proceed. But the message here, and our entrained ignorance of it, is quite clear. For we have made covenant or contract with them and their gods through their word trickery, even as we stand in surety to their snare, person, or status. And this is a great example of so many verses that fall upon ears that cannot hear and eyes that cannot see. For when the words are understood in their original intention, this verse carries a much deeper meaning. We must read them with an open mind and seek their true meaning and intent. We find that we must condemn our own ego before we may see that our love or belief of our legal identity and status it provides is the barrier to knowledge. For if we try to justify our legal, fictional personhood and its system of anti-God law, while at the same time claiming Christhood and its law as the Word or Son of God, we must necessarily experience the full effect of cognitive dissonance. We simply cannot have, in reality, two masters, two gods, because we cannot have and uphold at the same time two opposing laws. Here, in this simple scriptural declaration, we find the very essence of our own collective hell. The entire purpose of the existence of the United States and its corporate franchise of national citizenship is to serve the gods or creators of that nation. It is a commercial, dead existence only, performed in the name of another that is and can only be opposed to the supremacy of Jehovah. For a citizenship carries with it a legal covenant, not of the grace of God, but in the service and subjugation of that which is opposed to God. Grace of God, de gratia, opposed to God, de facto. It is to be in surety to a fictional person, to be snared by man's legal code. To be opposed to God means here to stand in opposition to the protective law of and over all of nature. For the law of man is only the law of his contracts, covenants, and the false law can only be applied through false legal testament. In all the fables ever told, the devil may only ever retain power over each individual man by his consent to that devil's contract, to its series of words. In law, a devil is defined as a man that is an evil genius. And not surprisingly, junior attorneys are also officially called as devils under the tutelage of devil masters at bar. This is no joke, and we will uncover the terms devil and devil master are actually the flattering titles officially given by the Scottish Parliament to its resident attorneys. And of course, devil's advocate, as an attorney, is certainly a commonplace term. But don't you go judging anyone just yet, for we must also realize that we too are acting as a devil's advocate, as the agents or attorneys over fictional persons, and as puppet masters of the state's puppets. We are not acting as our true selves either. Judge not, want not. For any man to reign over another man by fictional name and title, one must use the property, name, and title of the other, which is a tacit or express agreement to abide by the law of the other. The contract is the devil's only actual tool, its only tie that may bind man's voluntary choice and make him sure, in surety, to support and operate in the legal matrix code of this big legal lie. The renter is always the subject of he who owns perfect title to that which is rented. A public person is incapable of perfection. And so the man who falls into that snare of a fiction of law, a person, must obey the law of his master or owner, even if that law is against God's law, as the law of nature. It is no longer a choice. The impersonation of a godless character in fiction takes choice away, for the man must follow the strict fictional law or contract of they that own that fictional character. The problem is that our entire culture has been repurposed so as to perpetrate this fraud of commercial citizenship in mammon. This is accomplished especially through legal marriage and birth certification, so that what is the worst, lowest possible status above that of involuntary slavery is applied to every man through what appears to him as that which is an absolutely normal custom in society. And because we are assured scripturally that all the gods of the nations are only ever idols, man can only ever stand in idolatry under any national citizenship. No exceptions. This legal entrapment has one and only one distinct purpose: to cause man into an alienation of his inalienable or sellable rights, so that his family wealth and inheritance can be taken in legal piracy by the law of the sea as treasure found by salvage. This is the master plan. And as strange as that may sound, it is exactly what the legal dictionaries and court records tell us is happening. So keep reading, for this work is an encyclopedic dictionary exposing that master plan by these legalized pirates in their own words, and we haven't even reached the first chapter. One very clear and agreed upon foundation must be set here at the beginning. He's saying at the beginning on page 129. Dude's a savage. We must know and understand that without a foundation, without an agreed upon source, a god or creator, no structure would be able to stand in its own self-existence, either physically, metaphorically, or as a legal fiction. Only one realm stands in self-evidence and self-existence, and that is the reality of nature that relies on nothing of man's imaginations or creations to exist. To this natural realm, we attribute the highest word of creation and the highest authority of law possible as the natural law. And so we call this whole conceptualization of what is pure and real in the universe as God or Jehovah. Without this understanding of our highest foundation of law, we may claim nowhere else to go, no way out of fiction, for we have no words to describe reality as Jehovah to those lesser gods that seek to defeat the authority of that natural law of God, which is well accepted to be in all legal systems an uncontrollable, unwritten act of God. In other words, if you are their subject under their persona and law, and they very much recognize God's law of nature as highest, then whether you like it or not, you accept this as true. If they consider it their duty to entrap you in legal contract and law because you have fallen and chose to remain fallen from grace and the natural freedom and negative responsibility and duty of God, then you would be quite a dumbass to claim differently while following their law. This is not merely some foolish religious doctrine. This is the foundation of all systems of law. To ignore this fact is to publicly pronounce what a fool you are, for your denial is literally a curse upon your true self or source, a fortification of the chains that bind you to fiction. To publicly proclaim your non-belief or hate, non-love, of God as creator of life and all self-existence is to publicly claim that reality does not exist and that fiction overrules the law of nature. I think it's interesting. Dumbass came up in the weave on Saturday as the Desheret crown, the russet crown, the red crown of Lower Egypt, representing the profane, the masses, the asses, the dumbasses. And this state of confusion and helplessness is exactly where I'm going to read a little further. There's a good stopping point I can see here. Yeah. And this state of confusion and helplessness is exactly where they wish you to say, bound by their words of art, wish you to stay, bound by their words of art, and worshiping all things unnatural. And so, we must here have a meeting of the minds before continuing with this work. Without this understanding as the very principle and foundation of all things, and of the fiction laws, and of the fictional laws that hold all real and artificial things together, there is no point in your moving forward. And so, whether we believe, love, or don't believe in God, and the many forms, images, and anthropomorphic versions that are manifested to us by that multitude of legal and ecclesiastical institutions, books adversaria, and sacred, meaning cursed, sites from all over the earth, we must here understand that the entirety of all law is based in some way on God, either in support of God or as that which is opposed to God. I want to make a quick point here. He mentions books being called adversaria. That is an old word in the Latin for the pulpy books that are given to the profane, the public, like Ovid's works on love, for example. The word for that type of non-holy book, fiction, if you will, was called adversaria.
Wow.
Adversaria. So most of what people read or take in would be under the category of adversaria, because it's not based on the natural law.
Yes, that's a great word. It even has diversity in it. Like add
Oh shit, yeah.
Add diversity.
Ouch. Good point. Yeah, so and of course Satan is adversary. So they're satanic because they're not natural law. So yeah, to continue this paragraph.
It reminds me too that in Don Quixote they put the books on trial and condemn some of them and give some of them. It's not only in Don Quixote; it's a common thing. It actually used to happen. That would be part of the book banishing or burning. That they would take the books and put them on trial as if they were people, and then have findings against them.
Wow.
Damn! It even has advertisement in it a little bit.
There you go. There it is.
That is a great point, Chance. I'm
I've
so glad.
I've been obsessed my whole life with adversaria.
They've filled our entire life with adversaria. Yeah, we must here understand that the entirety of all law is based in some way on God, either in support of God or as that which is opposed to God. At the heart and foundation of all law and of all things, there sits some version, form, and flavor of what God is. If the acknowledged God is Satan, then that nevertheless means that this God is the foundation of the satanic or adversarial law, and thus the structure of that society. But we must remember that Satan only exists as a concept against that which is the reality and nature of God. Without God, Satan would serve no purpose, for Satan is only the adversary of God. No God, no adversary. Darkness needs light to shine so that it may cast its own shadows, especially the light of revelatory knowledge. And so, we must know here that whatever is considered as sovereign is merely the God or gods over any legally created law or legal system of men. The gods of nations sit only in idolatry, for nations are only ever the artful creations of man, not of God, not of the true binding source of nature. Be it a king or a specific private people, the sovereignty of any legally created entity, church, or state is acting as God or landlord over whatever those men constitute or create as their own realm of fiction. Acceptance of their artificial legal existence is acceptance of their personal godhood. To fear them is to respect them. For example, let us consider every one of the several state constitutions, which are all similarly worded. Every state constitution stems from one and only one source, the authority of some name or description of the highest God. This cannot be denied, for it is written plainly and clearly. Every single state constitution begins with a similar religious preamble, such as, "We, the people of New Mexico, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of liberty, in order to secure the advantages of a state government, do ordain and establish this Constitution." So I'm going to stop there and take a breather. I made it through really just let's see, almost 2 full pages, front and back. So
Nice.
it's a hefty book. Actually, once I start reading it, I never even want to stop because it is such a flow state. There isn't really a good place to stop. He just goes and goes. But
if someone else is prepared, they can go ahead. But otherwise, I'll grab a book and just keep reading unless we have. You guys want to have some commentary on the stuff that Chance just read? I mean, there's a lot there. A lot there.
I'd be happy for some commentary. I'm gonna go off of screen and switch to the other device to my do some art somewhere else, but I can still hear you all.
Yeah, this is how much progress I've made so far. This is the rock.
Nice.
This is the orange.
Nice.
So I feel like the colors are matched pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Not perfect, but let's see where we get. I found this rock when I took my dog for a walk, I think. And I've got a really nice heater down here, so I keep setting it down here to let it dry. Prompt it to dry faster. So, adversaria. You know, I've always had this knowledge that, you know, I've told people, like, it doesn't matter how many books we buy and find, you know, you're never going to get the true full answers out of books because for one thing, we've all been into fine bookstores and into there's a place in Portland, Oregon called Powell's City of Books, and it's literally a full city block bookstore. From the basement to the tippy top, it's a one full city block downtown Portland, and it's called Powell's City of Books. And you can get lost there for days. And there's such a thing as the rare and collected books room or whatever it's called. And you go in there, and they've got things on display that are, you know, anywhere from $50 to $150 to $300, right on up to just as, you know, high as you could imagine. Some of them are listed in the case at 10 grand, you know, or more. And I guarantee if you ask them and you're serious and you have money, they can show you the real rare books room where, you know, you probably have to be signed in and signed out or something, or have some kind of clout to even get in there. And that's just the regular commercial booksellers. That has nothing to do with people who are outside of that system, who own that system, who influence that system, like whales making waves on the beach. And so I could only imagine what's in these Vatican libraries and secret Alexandrian type vaults and caches. And it would probably enlighten us to the point of making us feel like we're going to lose our mind if we were able to see some of that stuff. Because we've dug so hard, but we've only been allowed to dig through the adversaria, you know.
Right.
I'm trying to dig through my memory here, and I read something one time about the first editions of, I think it would be a Dr. Seuss book, and the children's books also hold a great deal of value.
Yeah.
So it's not just these books in the Vatican. It could be a first edition of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of danced around this topic before when I get into the mystery surrounding the publishing of the first Harry Potter book. The first edition Harry Potter book. Imagine the value that will sell for today. And how do you verify the authenticity of a true first edition, first book in the Harry Potter series?
Yeah, that's the other thing is you get into the whole digression of what do they call the word where you prove where something's been? It always slips my mind, but you know, in the world of art and in the world of anything, where something originally came from, and every single hand that it's passed through, there's a word for this.
Yeah.
And
Is it pedigree?
Pedigree is a close. I
very
always get
close.
That just felt like a good word.
Is provenance.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's provenance. So,
Bingo.
Ooh, vocab words. Love it.
provenance is a great word,
Provenance.
and you know, if you look into the world of art, you realize what a fraudulent piece of shit the whole thing is, because they'll they'll give you some, like, there'll be this huge piece of art, like obscenely huge, and then they'll give you this detailed, insane provenance. It doesn't even make any sense in relation to the size of the thing, you know. Like it has this stack of paperwork that comes with it and says it's been all these places, and you're looking at it, you know, and it's like fucking 6,000 pounds of marble or something, and you're like, no, I don't think you guys have moved it that many times even. What are you talking about, you know? And they make all this kind of stuff up. So that was my point, you know, was that so if we wanted to right now, we could start working really hard to manufacture perfect identical copies of what we know to be first edition Harry Potter books and just stack them up, you know. And that way, one day when they're worth a lot, we can sell our replicas for, you know, the same price as a true original, dilute the market and get ourselves some money. Well, there's lots of people doing this. You know, if you go to coin collector shows, you know, they're claiming all of these coins are ancient and all this stuff. And, you know, they're just minting them in Turkey or something and then running them through some kind of antiquing process to make them look old or whatever. Just like that.
SB, if you would just put as much effort into something straight and narrow as you do with your mischief, you'd be quite well off.
I know. That's the challenge. You know how they say the apostle Paul had a thorn in his side, and some people speculate that he was blind. And that's the thorn in my side is that I'm doing everything all at once, all the time. And I'm aware of it. So that's an improvement.
Me too, dude.
Over
Me
when
too.
I was 19, you know, when I was 19, I wasn't even really aware of it. So now I'm at least aware of it. And I am trying to narrow things down. But yeah, I agree. Well, I intend to become not just very financially more well off than I am, but to drag all of you along with me on this wonderful escapade to see what happens next. You know,
You all right there, Gordy?
I see him.
Gordy, we're
You
going to
are
need some.
on the
We're going
flow
to need some
state.
papers tonight. We're going to need to see your provenance. We need to know the chronology of the ownership and custody or the location, all your life's history, and do not provide falsified provenance documents to us. We will be able to determine what is authentic.
Yeah, we know the real pedigree. So now show us your false pedigree so we can make more accusations. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, Gordy.
I love it,
Can you
Gordy.
hear it? Can you hear
I
us?
can get my
Yeah, we hear you now.
my things died.
all that He got attacked before he could even get the second earbud in.
That's how the devil works. He gets his lies in before the person can gather his own thoughts and defend
That's
himself.
right.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you bring up the word provenance, because now that I think about it, isn't the personhood a false provenance?
Here. Yeah. They're
It's
trying
your-
to tell me they know where I
It's
was
your
when
life
I was
record.
born. Who
It's
gave
your
birth
permanent
to me.
record. This is
Yeah.
going to go on your permanent record.
Nice.
I always love that. In Animal House.
That always makes me think of a really sweet piece of vinyl that tells everything about me that I get to keep. It's my permanent record. You know, ever since I was a little kid, that's what I thought. Like, I'm going to get a record someday. It's going to have everything bad on it about me. I was like excited at the thought, you know, like I'm going to have a permanent record. And then, of course, I grew up and realized that A, they were just bluffing, and B, the permanent record is this disparate mythical document that's spread out across 10 million records that's not really permanent at all. Like, I really doubt they know what I was doing at Robla Elementary School in North Sacramento anymore. Probably no records exist hardly. It's too bad too.
Hey, have you seen this thing they do with cremation remains and press them into vinyl, and you
Yeah.
can put whatever you want on it?
No, I haven't seen a vinyl one. That's great. No, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I just saw it like a month ago, and I was like, holy shit, I kind of want to do that.
Yeah,
Like,
that makes me want to, like with
what would
pets
you
especially.
Like, what would you put on it, on your for musical or audio epitaph?
For my own?
Like, yeah, like what
I
would
don't know.
you
It'd
want
have to be a double
people-
album.
You can do it. You can do as many as you want. That's what's neat.
It just made me think
And
of what I would have put on my dad's if I'd have known that this technology existed when he died. I could have made him into a sweet mixtape.
Well, I think you still can. Do you have his ashes?
No, I threw them all into the American River.
Ah, well, that's good too.
That's where we used to go. Like, we would go down there and swim and lay on the rocks, and like the river American River is really shallow and fast. A lot of people raft it, and there was a sweet spot kind of just outside of Auburn. And you know, way back in the day, 1999, my gut just kind of spoke to me. That's where he wanted to be. I threw his ashes in there along with some long stem roses.
Nice.
John
Gordy?
Robertson Rhodes, miss you, man. Hope you're doing all right.
Gordy, how's the kiddo's birthday?
I really celebrated with my wife and daughter earlier in the week. So it was just making a nice dinner for my wife and, you know, hanging out, spending time, you know, good stuff.
Nice.
But it was nice, very nice. She
Was it
quit her
hot?
job. She quit her job,
Oh, wow.
and they threw a big party for her. So it's been an emotional drain for her,
Yeah.
having to leave a company that you're very much appreciated at for what you do. Because, I mean, she does great work with some of those addicts, man. But
She quit because of the
Tons.
hoopla going on.
a lot of things. No, not really. Like,
What was
they've
the
kind
job?
of,
We don't maybe all have the context for that. At least
Oh,
I
I'm
speak for
sorry.
myself. You don't have to
I'm
like
sorry.
go crazy with it, but
no,
I'm
she
curious
works
now.
at-
Like, I want to know more about your inner world.
No, it's all right. She works with addicts at a rehab, and all different kinds. And she's worked for group homes for eating disorders and things like that. So she does good work, and she's making sure that people aren't taken advantage of, which is really impressive because she's made a lot of enemies that way and gotten people fired,
Yeah,
like groups of people fired at a time.
good.
Where like,
Good for her.
yeah, I'm so impressed. Like, she is stuck to her guns with these last few groups of medical fuckers and
I've
held
considered
the feet
writing
to
a
the
book
fire.
about it, man.
This
You
is
could
a
write a book
touching
about
story. I'm glad I asked.
how horrible caregiver types act. People
Yeah, no
claiming to be.
shit, man.
Well, I mean, I was a caregiver for years, so I mean, I understand, and I tried my best to not be a person who take advantage of people and be a man of my word, and I did a pretty good job, man. You know, but a lot of people end up
Gordy.
being caregivers because Go ahead.
Yeah.
I want to throw out there that it would be really cool if you got in touch with David Whitehead, who's making the Cult of the Medics series, because he might want to tack on another episode to that documentary series. I know he's mapping out only so many, but if he had the concept of like not just malpractice in the following bad procedures sense, but how there's like abuse that goes on in places. That would be that would probably be a good tangent. Like, I mean, he may have to go on a whole research train after he gets the idea, but maybe you could talk to him about that a little bit, because you do have some insider knowledge that might send him on an interesting path. He's a driven dude. That series is
it's definitely worth it to
phenomenal.
point it out to him, because it goes with his thing. That's exactly what I was talking about too. I've fired a lot of caregivers myself, man. Because they come around fronting and they're really just trying to slack off and do nothing, or steal drugs, or be abusive, and like they hide it good for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden the real monster comes out, you know.
Oh yeah.
As far as I know, he doesn't have that subject on his target list. It might be worth it.
Interesting.
If you want to get in touch, I'll put you in touch.
I do have something prepared to read, and I would like to read it now so that I can enjoy the rest of the flow state with some food in my mouth, and I don't want to speak with food in my mouth.
That's why I went first. Yeah,
that's why I came.
It's
That's
about
what I'm
the
here
time
for.
I was thinking if we didn't hit the next read by about 2 minutes ago, I was going to say something. So let's get in it.
I'm ready, and I'm not going to say much more about it. I'm just going to read, and then you guys can process what I'm reading. And then after I'm finished, there are 5 or 6 parts here. It shouldn't take too long, but I'd like to begin now. If someone could put the timestamp in chat, that would be appreciated. So I will say the name of an author and a date that this was translated from another language. I will say no more. I think you guys will catch on quickly what it is that I'm reading.
Don't forget everyone mute during a read, just so any little background noises and hums are reduced.
How is my sound coming through now?
Sounds good.
Dulcet.
Good.
Muting now.
1567. Arthur Golding. Tritonia unto all these words attentive hearing bends, and both the muses learned song and rightful wrath commends. And thereupon within herself this fancy did arise. It is no matter for to praise, but let ourself devise something to be commended for, and let us not permit our majesty to be despised without revenging it. And therewithal she purposed to put the Lydian maid, Arachne, to her neck averse, who, as had to her been said, presumed to prefer herself before her noble grace. In making cloth, this damsel was not famous for the place in which she dwelt, nor for her stock, but for her art. Her sire was Idmon, one of Colophon, a pelting purple dyer. Her mother was deceased, but she was of the baser sort, and egal to her make in birth, in living, and in port. But though this maid were meanly born, and dwelt but in a shed, at little Hypep, yet her trade, her fame abroad did spread, even all the Lydian cities through, to see her wondrous work. And we continue in 1807 with J.J. Howard's translation. Minerva pleased attention to the muse. While thus she spoke afforded, praised the song, and praised the just resentment of the maids. Then to herself the vengeance others take. Merely to praise were mean, I too should claim. Like praise, for like revenge, nor longer bear my power contempt by who unpunished live. And on Arachne, fair Maeonian maid, she turns her vengeful mind, whose skill she heard rivaled her own in labors of the loom. No fame her natal town, no fame her sire, on her bestowed, her skill conferred renown. Idmon of Colophon, her humble sire, soaked in the Phocian dye the spongy wool. Her mother, late deceased, from lowest stock, had sprung, and wedded with an equal mate. Yet had she gained through all the Lydian towns, for skill a mighty fame. Though born so low, though small, Hypep was her sole abode. A third version of this translation reads, as written by Charles Martin. After she'd listened to their tale, Minerva gave her approval to the muse's song, and to the anger that it justified. To praise is insufficient, she reflected. We will be praised, and we will not permit those who belittle our divinity to go unpunished. Her attention turned to the undoing of Maeonian Arachne, who, it was said, accepted praise that set her above the goddess in the art of weaving, a girl renowned not for her place of birth, nor for her family, but for her art. Her father, Idmon, came from Colophon, and, like the mother that Arachne lost, was of plebeian origin, a tradesman who steeped the thirsty wool in purple dye. Nevertheless, her art had made her famous throughout the many cities of Lydia, although her home was every bit as humble as Hypapa, the hamlet where she lived. In
Very good. Is there more?
1992,
Okay, good.
D.E. Hill, and there's a third version from 2000. This is 1992, D.E. Hill's English translation. These are all in English, if you can believe it. Tritonia had lent her ears to such words, and had approved the songs of the Aeonides and their just anger. Then to herself, to praise is not enough. Let me be praised myself, and not allow my Godhead to be scorned without punishment. and she turned her mind to the fate of the Myonian Arachne, who, she had heard, did not yield to her in renown for skill at working wool. She was famous not for her birthplace nor for the origin of her family, but for her skill. Her father, Colophonian Idmon, used to dye absorbent wool with Phocian murex. Her mother had died, but she too was from the plebs, an equal to her husband. Still, she had passionately sought for herself a memorable name throughout the Lydian cities, though sprung from a small house and living in small Hypapa. And finally, in 2000, from A.S. Klein, our fifth English translation for the evening, and the final that I will read. Tritonian Minerva had listened to every word and approved of the Ionian muses' song and their justified indignation. Then she said to herself, "To give praise is not enough. Let me be praised as well, and not allow my divine powers to be scorned without inflicting punishment." Her thoughts turned to Arachne of Myonia, who she had heard would not give her due credit in the art of spinning. The girl was not known for her place of birth or family, but for her skill. Her father, Idmon of Colophon, dyed the absorbent wool purple with Phocian murex. Her mother was dead. She too had been of humble birth, and the father the same. Nevertheless, though she lived in a modest home in little Hypapa, Arachne had gained a name for artistry throughout the cities of Lydia. Often the nymphs of Mount Tmolus deserted their vine-covered slopes, and the nymphs of the river Pactolus deserted their waves to examine her wonderful workmanship. It was not only a joy to see the finished cloths, but also to watch them made. So much beauty added to art. Whether at first she was winding the rough yarn into a new ball, or working the stuff with her fingers, teasing out the clouds of wool repeatedly, drawing them into long equal threads, twirling the slender spindle with practiced thumb, or embroidering with her needle, you could see she was taught by Pallas. Yet she denied it and took offense at the idea of such a teacher. "Contend with me," she said. "I will not disagree at all if I am beaten." I do have one more. Do you think I can do it?
Oh, I feel like I just had 5 cookies that were chocolate chip, and now I want a 6th cookie, but that is a different cookie. As in, like, does the story continue in any of these translations, or is this just this section only?
What I've taken was the first verses of Ovid's Metamorphosis and the story of Arachne, which was not in English originally, but has been translated many times across the years. The most recent one I have is from Maxwell Lewis Latham in July 2015, and I can close with this one. This one is more like a poem, and we can talk about poetic translation or word for word correct translation. By having been mentioned such, had proffered, hearing songs of the muses, Minerva, had esteemed them and justified anger. So with themselves, it is not enough to praise. We may have praised, and the very divinities are to not spurn without our penalty. We let it be. and Arachne of Maeonia, Lydia, the slopes of Mount Tmolus, who, for her weaving, was from fated purpose, not to yield from fame of her skill they'd heard. Not that she's given away in marriage, nor by birth of descent distinguished, but in the craft she was skilled. The latter's father, fond of drink, Idmon, dyed Phocis purple wool in Colophon. The mother had died, but from her father, equally, the man been a commoner. However, that all over Lydia, from the cities, studies application. Although sprung from a small town, Hypapa, from home she'd earned a remarkable name. That concludes my reading for the night. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you. That's there's so much weaving spiders in there.
Yeah.
It's tantalizing.
Yeah,
I want to know the
that's-
rest of the poem.
Lots of
It's really interesting.
arachnid and weaving happening.
It's one thing when you just hear the cliff notes of like, here's the condensed version of what this mythological story is. It's another thing to realize that that entire jive of how we're taught this stuff in textbooks and schools with these paraphrased, truncated versions, or through Wikipedias and such with their summaries, the cliff notes, is that all of the poetry is lost. So the first phase of losing it is in a new language, and we don't learn classic languages like people used to when they were classically educated. And then secondly, yeah, we're missing potentially getting a bad translation if we ever read it at all, but we're just missing reading it in that form of poetry, which totally changes the feel of it. That's
So
what I think. I think it's impressive when it's in the poetic form.
it is. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's interesting that there are multiple takes on it.
Well, yeah, it's not even really that similar. I mean, you can kind of tell because Alan's reading them all in a row, but the divergence is a lot. There's a lot of divergence there.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about what Bibles must be like.
You mean the non-adversaria?
Yeah.
Would they all be adversaria other than King James if the legal code is based on King James?
Oh, good question.
Now, there's an excellent question.
Yeah. So Maeonian is it's the birthplace of Homer. She was a Maeonian maid, and we know about this. We also know about the spider on the $1 bill, or is it an owl? It's an owl.
It's an owl
that's on the $1 bill. But there are spider webs
Sure.
all over the $1 bill as well. And I believe Maeonia is the word has etymological roots to money. And I just think it's interesting that our money is, it's very particularly woven. It has a very, a hard to counterfeit weave to the fabric of money.
Yeah.
Wow, there's been a theme of counterfeit in this whole thing now that we reflect on it from this point.
I should do a bibliomancy, see what that has to do with all this. And I didn't even hear I'm just fresh here. I didn't even hear most of any of that. So let's see what the all endings are beginnings says about from Lindsay Quarry Sharman. There's a million ways to go, but only a few that lead to freedom. There's ideals that clash with realities. There's 10 trillion nuances, details that will hold you up and strap you down, keeping you from action in the end. but it isn't perfection that we need to be after all. And the best thing we can do is the best we can with what we've got, where we're at. So don't give up, don't give in, and never buy what they're selling you. Create and sell them your wares instead. Corner this marketplace of the mental. Wow, huh? Let me start this paragraph over. This is interesting. So don't give up, don't give in, and never buy what they're selling you. Create and sell them your wares instead. Corner the marketplace of this mental called Earth. Send your messages far and wide. Send your messages. Sorry, guys. Your message holds the vibration that carry it to every living soul. We need you.
Nice.
Perfect.
Man, that sounds a lot like Arachne, though, because she's like expressing to do your art in a sense, and that will give you renown, and that will be renown for who you truly are, as opposed to a counterfeit path, a counterfeit self, a persona, a straw man.
And we were actually kind of talking about that earlier because Chance said if I had a singular focus instead of my mischievousness, I'd probably already have laid the earth low or something like that.
But that's the fun part.
See, that was Sean taking. I used a common idiom, and then Sean turned it into poetry with his recounting of it.
That's great.
So I've got Immanuel Velikovsky on deck here.
Oh boy!
Now tell me more about this guy. I know only a little bit about him. Can you give me like the briefest bio? So I
can dude. This is just teach a course, Gabriel. We'll sit back.
So Immanuel Velikovsky, he is a psychologist, essentially, and he has committed his life's work to doing basically dream interpretation of mythology and translating it into disaster phenomenon. So he believes in a very complicated cosmology for the primordial Earth, and he has a very it's really tricky. It's really something to wrap your head around. But he believes that in the earliest phases of Earth, that Earth was in an axial alignment with other planets. And so they made a pillar or a column or if you could imagine, like when you pour out your coffee slowly, each drop that comes out is like the planets in a row.
Can I make a quick statement?
Yeah.
I've never heard it described quite like that before. I've only imagined it up to this point as like billiard balls lined up, but at a distance from each other, you know?
Yes.
But what you're saying completely, I had no idea that it was described that way, because that sounds exactly like what I've been talking about, the spine of the world.
Yes.
You know, the original Garden of Eden before the earth grew and that land got sent away from the middle, away from the north or the throne.
Yes. And so Saturn was at the crown, at the tip top of the alignment, and underneath Saturn was Mars, and then under Mars was Earth, and under Earth was some say Uranus, some say Neptune. I think of Neptune, and Jupiter was. It's a little ambiguous. I think of Jupiter as a sheath, or like a wall surrounding all of the planets. It was a gaseous sheath. It was a force field surrounding all of these alignments.
Okay.
And from Earth, you could not see all that we see now because of this sheath. Made it hard to penetrate and see
Now,
that there is the outer space and the other
now,
stars.
did they make this into a famous CGI like in the 90s or something?
There's some CGI work that translates Immanuel's visions.
Okay, so that because his book is from the 70s, right, or 60s?
I think maybe even earlier, maybe the 40s. Let me see. The 50s.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I do have some vague knowledge of this guy, but thank you. That was a great explanation.
Yeah.
And I'm going to mute now so I can not.
Uh-huh.
That way, if I fart, it doesn't interrupt your reading.
No, please do. That would be the best to happen on Flow.
So over time, I think what's really beautiful about this cosmology is that purple sheath, it gets ripped away. It gets taken off like a veil. And in that moment, the living creatures, they have a very traumatic realization at seeing the immensity of the stars and the other systems around them. And so that is a metaphor for rape. And that's why Zeus, Jupiter, is a rapist, because the sheath, that purple garment, was pulled away. And it's also a metaphor for Eve and her eye, the scales falling off of their eyes and them seeing for the first time that they are naked. It's a metaphor for so many things, but the thing that I like the most is it kind of redeems Zeus, because he's known as being such a rapist. But in this cosmology, it has a deeper scientific meaning. And think of your bed sheets when you pull your bed sheets off, and the static electricity, the sparks of static electricity. That is an expression of Zeus ripping the clothing away, and there being a electric discharge as a result of it. So that's kind of a brief rundown on his vision. He published this book, Worlds in Collision, and it made a shitstorm in the scientific community. And the next thing he knows, he's on his daily walk, and he comes across Albert Einstein.
I have another quick thing to insert that just blows my mind here, because I hadn't thought of it. You're talking about this gaseous sheath.
Uh-huh.
So as I've been playing around with like the cosmology that I'm attempting to intuit from syncretizing all the things that have been brought to my path, over the last couple of years.
Yes.
Okay, so part of this cosmic egg cosmology, I'm hard boiling, has been a recent idea that perhaps in the central ringland, whatever the newest land is, so it originally would have been the Saturn Jupiter land, where that was the first ring. They're on top. They're the newest, and the next ring grows, and you get Mars and Venus as the sun and moon. Next ring out is our current ring. So which at one point would have been the middle ring, because it would have been the newest. And that could have been the point where we had the giants, right? Maybe even megaliths were built then. At least some of them possibly. Could have been what was mud flooded when the earth grew. And that's all leftovers from previous civilization, which would explain why it's so spread out for what we interpret the stories to be like when we look at, say, America was Egypt, that story of reimagining Old Testament Egypt as being North America, right? Seems like things were a lot closer together in the biblical story, or they feel that way. Maybe it's because the land grew and things got spread out, and that's why these alignments go so far across vast distances, is because they were literally near each other originally.
Yes.
So there's
there's
that, but then to add in the last part, because that wasn't even the part I was trying to get to. The last part is that I was hypothesizing recently that, I haven't even shared this with anyone, but maybe the central column having higher level of bioavailable electricity, maybe that's not the only explanation for the giants. Maybe there was a higher hydrogen level. After hearing all this stuff George Wiseman's doing lately with the hydrogen talks, I now fully think that it's very possible that this whole thing all weaves together, and that on the original ringland, where you're close to the column or spine of the world tree, there's a dense gaseous hydrogen output from that column, perhaps, which gives the biology more fuel to build itself, to be giants, to be intelligent, to be in perfect health, maybe not to even need food. Which is why you have no bathrooms in these buildings, no kitchen areas in these buildings, in a lot of the old world architecture. All this is like flashing in my mind right now, mostly. I feel like Arachne visited me just now. It weaves together, though.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, that whole expanding Earth is always like, as soon as I saw, like, years and years and years ago, I remember telling teachers the same thing, that all the land, you know, fits together. If you look at it, if you're still assuming it's a ball, right? That the land masses fit together on one side, but they also fit together on the other side. And the only way that works is if it's smaller. And I remember teachers fighting me on it. I'm like, nah, stupid. It is. You can just see it. It's just, and they're like fucking fighting me on it, and I'm like, all right.
Yep.
Like, I don't know why you have to stick to this. You don't know that is true. Like, any of the whole magma Earth, like, we don't have any
guys. I just had the
idea
craziest
that it's
idea.
an iron core.
Yeah.
What about this? Dude, hydrogen in the atmosphere in density is flammable. Man, Prometheus, bringing fire, but also the fall of man. What if the electrolysis event, or the growing of the land, whatever that was, ignited the hydrogen in the air?
Yeah.
Split the luminary into two, whatever the luminary was in that ring, and explains the bombed out, destroyed shit we see that we get blamed after the Great Fire of such and such, or the San Francisco earthquake, or whatever.
Yeah, that's good.
What if that's where the blown up stuff is from, and not everything blew up everywhere, but some of it did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
man.
I don't know, man. It's
speculation,
all
man.
like, it's all clicking, man. It's all, I'm Charlie at the whiteboard.
I love expanding Earth theory, because it explains the discrepancy in this with people measuring how far you're supposed to see things with the curvature. It's the curvature discrepancy. And if we've been, if that figure is off, and it's probably off by a real long shot, it's because the Earth has grown, considerably. And it will consider, and that just means plus ultra. There's so much more to find here. So, oh gosh, I could go on and on. Just one more thing. So, as this alignment, it got caught into the net of the solar construct, the heliocentric whatever, that plane, this axial alignment got drawn into the plane of the heliocentric model, and all the shit hit the fan and everything goes everywhere. But as it's approaching the new sun, as Saturn is coming closer and closer to the new sun, there is a light being cast just on the ridge of Saturn up above us in that North Pole. And that light is like a crescent. And that crescent, that subtle glow, it explains the Islam, the moon and the star of the Islam, the flag of Islam, because you can't have a star in front of the moon. That's impossible. But if that crescent is actually the glow of the approaching sun, then it explains
Could also
why
be Venus, because Venus makes a crescent, and
yeah,
it's represented by the 5-pointed star.
5-pointed star. Yep. But another cool thing,
the crescent could be basically an occult version for Venus. Could be.
yeah, yep.
Well, there's a lot of flat Earth speculation that you can actually, that the moon's not what it appears to be or not what they told us at all, and that you can actually, that there's photography and other evidence of seeing stars through the
through the new moon.
Yeah, or through the crescent moon. You know that you can.
It becomes
There's a lot of
transparent.
flat Earth
Yeah,
information that I
it's
can't
not
explain
solid.
to you guys without doing like. I'd have to take my rough drafts and really get them together. Because the guy that came up with that square flat Earth theory, we really stumbled onto and then pursued and effectively researched a lot of stuff. But the guy who started it all is just kind of he's just a hard ass, because he was kind of spearheading the whole thing. And then, as you know, things digress, and then there are a lot of shills, and there's a lot of jerks, and just a lot of weird stuff happens. And so it's kind of hard to. It's not. You know, I even considered asking if he wants to come on the show, but I haven't really talked to him in a long time. But you know, I've been thinking about it, like how. Oh, and something phenomenal happened on Twitter. I made a comment on Andy Worski's. Andy Worski put up some kind of a stream with some guy I never heard of. It goes by PPP, and they did this weird thing called Kino Casino. So I watched like 20 minutes of it, and I chimed in on Twitter and complimented Andy on having something new going. And he was like, "Oh, I remember, you're the Flat Earth guy, right? We've been wanting to do a Flat Earth show." So it's like, okay, it's coming full circle here. I'm going to go back on some broadcast with Andy Worski and talk about Flat Earth again, probably.
Well, fun.
I'm glad to hear that, because I saw you say like a condensed version of that, and I was like, "Who's Worski?" Now I have the data.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
I mean, that's how it all started. It was Andy Worski's show. He was co-hosting with the guy Jean-Francois Garapi, goes by JF or JFG, and it was me and JF that debated, but Worski was the host, and really Worski ended up double teaming and, like, you know, being on JF's side, but it was all lighthearted and fun. I mean, that's something we could do as a movie night if you wanted, Gordy. We could actually watch my Flat Earth debate.
Oh, that might be fun. Yeah, that might be really fun.
Because I've never been able to sit through more than about 20 minutes because it's super cringy to me, you know.
Love that. God, dude, I can't watch myself.
Takes balls.
It's hard.
Yeah, I just let it pass out of my mind that I do any of this stuff, and I appreciate it when people say they like it, but I don't go look at it.
Right. I don't want to listen to my songs.
I mean, I'll make
20 years
there. Now,
to
if I'm recording something, I'll listen to playback redundantly because I want it to be perfect. Yeah. But anyways, sorry for interrupting.
Listen to my own premiere so I can hang out with the live chatters in the premiere, and it's good for me to hear what the guest has to say twice, because then I carry the information forward better. Nice.
So one of my favorite things, and I think that's what I'm starting on here, is chapter 1. One of my favorite things that Velikovsky does is he will take biblical miracles and substantiate them scientifically, but also culturally, and by cross-referencing other myths in other locations around the world. and they tend to line up chronologically as well. So I think what this first part is about what's called Joshua's longest day, which is a part in the Bible where the earth is it stays sunny for more than
Right there.
like for 48 hours or something.
Right. The sun doesn't set exactly.
Yeah, for a prolonged period.
It's for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So, chapter 1 of Worlds in Collision. The most incredible
Before you
story.
start, you said the sun doesn't set. This, yeah, that would be like the androgen luminary, right?
Yeah.
Because if they don't split into a sun and moon yet, it's the Mercury version in the middle column, and the column itself possibly puts off light. Then
yes,
you have it would be like pre-duality, basically. That's why it would be so Edenic, and everything would be just in perfect expression and harmonious and healthy.
Yeah.
It's like this pre-duality. And then Zeus splits the man and woman apart, right? They used to be that's metaphor for duality.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, man. It's amazing. And another point to just kind of throw out there to ponder is years ago I grew a considerable amount of marijuana, and a lot of people know that if you fuck with the light cycle on your plants, they will turn hermaphroditic. You'll get the Hermes, and you got to go through your garden, and you got to execute the Hermes, so they become sacrificial. You have to sacrifice the hermaphrodite, and that is crazy to me that there may be religious, cultural implications to the justification of killing a hermaphroditic being. And then there's the fact that some people think that Noah was a hermaphrodite. So all of that is a lot to think about.
He's from pre-flood, pre-deluge. Yeah,
right.
There it is.
Well, that's what they say. That he's the speculation is that he carries all of the DNA for all of the people coming after him, and that's why his. I think we talked about it on the episode we did with James True about space. We got into the subject, so I remember that.
Damn.
Yeah. I
Gabe,
remember.
We haven't even started reading yet, and this has just been.
I know.
It's perfect.
This is hardcore.
I am muting now.
All right. The most incredible story of miracles is told about Joshua ben Nun, who, pursuing the Canaanite kings at Beth Horon, implored the sun and moon to stand still. And he said, in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou, moon, in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hastened not to go down about a whole day. Joshua 10:12-13. This story is beyond the belief of even the most imaginative or most pious person. Waves of stormy sea may have drowned one host and been merciful to another. The earth could crack asunder and swallow up human beings. The Jordan could be blocked by a slice of by a slice of its bank falling into the bed of the river. Jericho's walls, not by the blast of trumpets, but by an incidental earthquake, could have been breached. But that the sun and the moon should halt in their movement across the firmament, this could be only the product of fancy, a poetic image, a metaphor. a hideous implausibility when imposed as a subject for belief, a matter for scorn. It manifests even a want of reverence for the Supreme Being. According to the knowledge of our age, not of the age when the book of Joshua or Jasher was written, this could have happened if the earth had ceased for a time to roll along its prescribed path. Is such a disturbance conceivable? No record of the slightest confusion is registered in the present annals of the earth. Each year consists of 365 days, 5 hours, and 49 minutes. A departure of the earth from its regular rotation is thinkable, but only in the very improbable event that our planet should meet another heavenly body of sufficient mass to disrupt the eternal path of our world. It is true that aerolites or meteorites reach our Earth continually, sometimes by the thousands and tens of thousands. But no dislocation of our precise turning round and round has ever been perceived. This does not mean that a larger body or a larger number of bodies could not strike the terrestrial sphere. The large number of asteroids between the orbits of the planets Mars and Jupiter suggests that at some unknown time another planet revolved there. Now, only these meteorites follow approximately the path along which the destroyed planet circled the sun. Possibly, a comet ran into it and shattered it. That a comet may strike our planet is not very probable, but the idea is not absurd. The heavenly mechanism works with almost absolute precision, but unstable, their way lost, comets by the thousands, by the millions, revolve in the sky, and their interference may disturb the harmony. Some of these comets belong to our system. Periodically they return, but not at very exact intervals, owing to the perturbations caused by gravitation towards the larger planets when they fly too close to them. But innumerable other comets, often seen only through a telescope, come flying in from immeasurable spaces of the universe at very great speed and disappear, possibly forever. Some comets are visible only for hours, some for days or weeks or even months. Might it happen that the earth under our feet, would roll towards perilous collision with a huge mass of meteorites, a trail of stones flying at enormous speed around and across our solar system? This possibility was analyzed with fervor during the last century. From the time of Aristotle, who asserted that a meteorite which fell at Aegospotami, when a comet was glowing in the sky, had been lifted from the ground by the wind and carried in the air and dropped over that place until the year 1803, when, on April 26th, a shower of meteors fell at Alger, France, and was investigated by Boit for the French Academy of Sciences and the scholarly world. And in the meantime, there lived Copernicus, Galileo Galilei, Kepler, Newton, and Huygens, Huygens, did not believe that such a thing as a stone falling from the sky was possible at all. And this, despite many occasions when stones fell before the eyes of a crowd, as did the aerolite in the presence of Emperor Maximilian and his court of Insesheim, Alsace, on November 7th, 1492. Only shortly before 1803, the Academy of Sciences in Paris refused to believe that on another occasion stones had fallen from the sky. The fall of meteorites on July 24th, 1790, in southwest France was pronounced un phenomenon physicamente impossible, phenomenon that's physically impossible. Since the year 1803, however, scholars have believed that stones fall from the sky. If a stone can collide with the earth, and occasionally a shower of stones too, cannot a full-sized comet fly into the face of the earth? Is it calculated that such a possibility exists, but that it is very unlikely to occur? If the head of a comet could pass very close to our path, so as to affect a distortion in the career of the Earth, another phenomenon besides the disturbed movement of the planet would probably occur. A rain of meteorites would strike the Earth and would increase to a torrent. Stones scorched by flying through the atmosphere would be hurled on home and head. In the book of Joshua, 2 verses before the passage about the sun that was suspended on high for a number of hours without moving to the Occident, we find this passage. As they, the Canaanite kings, fled from before Israel, and were in the going down to Beth Horon, the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them to Ashkah, and they died. They were more which died with hailstones, stones of Borad, than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword.
Quick
The author
pause,
of-
Gabe.
Yeah,
Jew, Potter, the Lord, the Father, the Rock star.
the rock star.
Is that why? Is that why the chief cornerstone? Is it why
Yeah, man.
that these gods all have a correlation to the stone? I'll go search for the word stone or rock in Dylan's 3 books and come up with it on like 50 pages.
Yeah, man. The Petra. Yep.
Peter,
Petra.
upon
means
this rock, the church will be founded, or whatever. Sorry, that's just
that's
needed
one of
to
my
be
favorite Christian
interjected.
bands. Petra, by the way.
Thank you, Alan. Thank
Rock
you.
star.
Thank you, Alan.
Petra Live,
I
probably
knew it was. I
1988,
knew it was
88 or
there.
89. Saw
Is
Petra
that
live.
where Christian rock bands has been this whole time? It's been to get us to rock God the Rock or Christ the Rock. That was the whole
Oh,
point
yes.
this whole
Because they
time.
want us to worship
Whole
that Jew
time.
Peter.
Yep.
Patre. Yeah, this is like, I'm going to probably go look for a good passage on rocks while Gabriel keeps reading.
I could read the Petra discography beginning in 1974 with their self-titled release, Petra, but I won't. I do have one question, though, before Gabriel continues reading.
Mm-hmm.
You said this word Huron or Heron. Beth Heron, is that the house of Heron? Could you spell that out for us the
Mm-hmm.
way it's spelled in the text?
Yep. BETH dash HORON.
See, that's
Horon.
that's Hera. Hera and On. That's what it is. That's
Mm-hmm.
the goddess, god, androgyne before it splits.
Nice.
Her on.
And it's something.
Because all these sea goddesses give birth to the sun. Do you see? Because they represent the moon. It maybe is talking about why does the moon give birth to the sun in this mythology? Mare, give birth to the Christos, all of the time, over and over again.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the split. It's the schism. It's the splitting of the original luminary, the androgynon, the Hermes or the Mercury, into two. It's sacrificed.
Yes.
It's like they give us the inversion when they tell us that Mercury comes out of Jupiter's head. It's like Jupiter came out of Mercury, possibly. Or maybe Mercury came out of Jupiter's head in the sense that Jupiter was the god. I don't know. It's confusing, though. They're coming out of each other, though. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
I love that I can hear Gordy playing the guitar on top of it. This is really sweet.
Rock and roll,
that's enough
baby.
interrupting, though. I'm sure there's yeah, it's right, rock and roll. I'm sure there's more mind blowers in Velikovsky chapter 1.
Yeah. So
You gotta meet Gordy, though. It's too loud.
So
yeah.
I've done it before too, and I didn't know how loud I was. So I understand it's fun.
You mean sit there and jam?
So
Jam into my headphones, yeah.
So it says there that more people died from the stones as they were running away from Israel than those that died by the sword. The author of the book of Joshua was surely ignorant of any connection between the two phenomena. He could not be expected to have had any knowledge about the nature of aerolites, which is interesting how aerolites and Israelites sound so similar. Or about the forces of attraction between celestial bodies and the like. As these phenomena were recorded to have occurred together, it is improbable that the records were invented. The meteorites fell on the earth in a torrent. They must have fallen in very great numbers, for they struck down more warriors than the swords of their adversaries. To have killed persons by the hundreds or thousands in a field, and a cataract of stones must have fallen. Such a torrent of great stones would mean that a train of meteorites or a comet had struck our planet. The quotation in the Bible from the book of Jasher is laconic and may give the impression that the phenomenon of the motionless sun and moon was local, seen only in Palestine between the valley of Ajalon and Gibeon. But the cosmic character of the prodigy is pictured in a thanksgiving prayer ascribed to Joshua. Sun and moon stood still in heaven, and thou didst stand in thy wrath against our oppressors. All the princes of the earth stood up. The kings of the nation had gathered themselves together. Thou didst destroy them in thy fury, and thou didst ruin them in thy rage. Nations raged from fear of thee. Kingdoms tottered because of thy wrath. Thou didst pour out thy fury upon them. Thou didst terrify them in thy wrath. The earth quaked and trembled from the noise of thy thunders. Thou didst pursue them in thy storm. Thou didst consume them in the whirlwind. Their carcasses were like rubbish. The wide radius over which the heavenly wrath swept is emphasized in the prayer, all the kingdoms tottered. A torrent of large stones coming from the sky, an earthquake, a whirlwind, a disturbance in the movement of the earth, these four phenomena belong together. It appears that a large comet must have passed very near to our planet and disrupted its movement. A part of the stones dispersed in the neck and tail of the comet smote the surface of our earth, a shattering blow. We are entitled, on the basis of the book of Joshua, to assume that at some date in the middle of the second millennium before the present era, the Earth was interrupted in its regular rotation by a comet. Such a statement has so many implications that it should not be made thoughtlessly. To this I say that though the implications are great and many, the present research in its entirety is an interlinked sequence of documents and other evidence, all of which in common carry the weight of this and other statements in this book. The problem before us is one of mechanics. Points on the outer layers of the rotating globe, especially near the equator, move at a higher linear velocity than points on the inner layers, but at the same angular velocity. Consequently, if the Earth were suddenly stopped or slowed down in its rotation, the inner layers might have come to rest, or their rotational velocity might be slowed, while the outer layers would still tend to go on rotating. This would cause friction between the various liquids or semifluid layers, creating heat on the outermost periphery of the solid layers would be torn apart, causing mountains and even continents to fall or rise. As I shall show later, mountains fell and others rose from level ground. The earth, with its oceans and continents, became heated, the seas boiled in many places, and rock liquefied. Volcanoes ignited and forests burned. Would not a sudden stop by the earth rotating at a little over 1,000 miles an hour at its equator mean a complete destruction of the world? Since the world survived, there must have been a mechanism to cushion the slowing down of terrestrial rotation, if it really occurred, or another escape for the energy of motion besides transformation to heat, or both. Or if rotation persisted, undisturbed, the terrestrial axis may have tilted in the presence of a strong magnetic field, so that the sun appeared to lose 4 hours of its diurnal movement.
Hey guys,
These,
just real quick.
Yep.
I
Yep.
got a crash. I'm beat. I'm falling asleep. So
All right, Gordy.
I'm gonna say good night.
Hail, Gordy.
Brothers.
Talk to you soon,
Have
bro.
a good evening.
Much love, brother.
Yeah, thanks. You too, man.
And the last line here is, these problems are kept in sight and are faced in the epilogue of this volume. So that, I find that very interesting that that's where he starts, is by kind of paraphrasing a biblical miraculous event and kind of lining it up for his attempts to explain it. And his work is really prolific. Like he talks to geologists from all over the world, and he even talks to tribes on the other side of the world, opposite of where these events that we're told these events took place. And he finds out that while in the book of Joshua it said that the day was prolonged, he's actually found tribes on the other side of the planet where the night was prolonged. And it coincides chronologically with that biblical account.
Y'all need Clubhouse. That's funny. I like Telegram more. I'm gonna be real. So Gabriel,
Yeah.
all of that could be tweaked to be explained by the electrolysis event,
Yes.
the electrical Ragnarok on a flat Earth, or on a.
Yeah.
It really could. It could be tweaked to fit that, because you have, with electrolysis, as we now understand it from talking to Benjamin and George, you get this sludge. But what the sludge is composed of is the same elements as the stainless steel plates that do the electrolysis. So
Mm-hmm.
if the earth is part of the battery in some way, then an electrolysis event going through the whole system on a massive scale, while it may be sludge to the cosmos, but to our size and scope, it would be like boulders raining from the sky.
Right. Yes.
And it like land just shoving up into the air out of nowhere. And all the kingdoms would be attacked at once. And some of those, if they impacted hard enough, could explode the hydrogen-rich environment, fire and brimstone.
Yep.
Yeah, and a mud flood too.
It would cause a mud flood and fire. It's the baptism by fire.
Right. Right.
And water. It's both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Velikovsky is...
It's the Big Bang.
I wish it would just happen again so that we could
tell you, it's
confirm
the
it.
Big Bang.
I'll bet Chance wouldn't have predicted that he'd come full circle and believe in the Big Bang.
Oh, they always tell you the truth in a veiled way, though, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. He has... His name is
what they say
intriguing
could be
to me.
construed truthfully.
Uh-huh. His name, Velikovsky. It has veil, Ico, which is like the blood of the gods. Ichor is the blood of the gods, and sky in his name.
What if he's there in a gatekeeper role? Just a thought.
Yeah,
I wonder about. Well, most of these people are, whether they realize it or not. That's just it, because all you can do is parallel the truth and try and hide it, and eventually it'll come out. So
parallel. That's what I meant. Yeah, like that concept you talk about, Sean.
I see everything now. I mean, I'll be honest. I see everything as a parallel now. Like to me,
that's what the puns are about. They have parallel word
right.
meanings. They pun a lot of those topics, and it might seem like a joke, but it's also more than a joke. There's wisdom in the puns.
I've got a that just reminded me. Don't let me forget, you guys. Somebody remind me of this later. I've got an interview saved on my computer of two British guys, and they're really just talking about more like historical political events. But it's all encoded in puns, and they're using the puns as a way to drive the conversation on. And because they're just riffing, they're not going off a script or off of any structure. They're just like old buddies that knew each other, and they're both kind of in the conspiracy realm. So somebody remind me later, and I'll dig on my hard drive and find it, and then dump it somewhere where we can, jump it in the Telegram or something. I can't remember the guy's name right now. I watched it a couple times because it was so fascinating. The puns were really deep, and it was puns that were describing actual political and historical events. And the pun came from the people who perpetrated it, so they would make up a sing-songy name for their evil deed, and that it was something like that. But I just say that so I don't forget, because I'm not in my office right now. I can't stop and search.
I love how even the term punch line has pun.
Yeah, well, I mean, puns is the highest form of humor. I know people hate that. People think that, but it is. It's. I mean, people don't. It's because they don't look at these old books and all these deeper concepts. Like the pun is everything. Look at how Marty Leeds is describing. The layers of biblical meaning are a minimum of 9 deep on every single letter.
Nice. Yeah. So he has a chapter here, the Comet of Typhon, which I'm very interested in. The next chapter is the Spark, which I think is going to probably tie into the Colorado River, and why there's no sediment. There's no sign of sediment runoff. The entire Colorado, the Rocky Mountain Valley, that whole trench it's a scar from a spark gap. And then the next chapter is collapsed sky. So I'll line those up for the next couple flow states we do.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
How you doing, Chance?
You
already
could
get
have
off
the
of your-
spark, that sparking, arcing electricity, you know, archons
Yeah.
in the potentially in electrical Ragnarok. I don't know.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
How am I doing? I'm thinking about reading again.
Nice.
Because this book I've been meaning to read, and it's not that long. Maybe it's something for flow states. It is the stories about Earth's history, a geologist's descent from deep time. That might be a good one for a future one.
Nice.
Because
Yeah, that sounds good.
he goes through and basically proves that in like 8 or 9 different ways that mainstream geology is full of shit, and they just follow each other without any actual real science being done or accepted to challenge the narrative of the age of the Earth.
Right.
So what this could like, I'm telling you, growing Earth could solve that too, because the Earth could be way older, but the Earth that we're testing is only so old.
Right. The dynamics
like
of it.
It just connects so many dots.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with working out. I mean, it's more powerful to come up with and work out your own cosmological idea than it is to memorize other people's. It's what we would have done.
Because
naturally.
then you're
We
making
just grew
it
up
try
as a
to base it
tribe
off of nature. It's like
Right,
what am
exactly.
I seeing?
If we just grew up as a tribe and we finally got things good enough that we didn't have to sweat always to get more food and everything, this is what we would do. We'd sit around and we'd work shit out, and we'd make, if we didn't have a mythos that was coming down from our ancestral lineage, then we would start spitballing shit. Just like that's why we naturally do this, and we don't end up in a place where we're like, okay, well, I think we're done, guys. This goes on forever. This is infinity. This is it. And so for you to have an idea that, hey, it seems like all of these definite provable scientific things make sense, and it all manifests into something that leads you, even if it's proven later to be wrong, all of that beneficial forward motion is just life itself, and it's good,
Yeah, man. Yep.
All right.
That's probably the reason I asked you how you're doing too, because you're a fucking juggernaut out here, and you're not obligated to fucking do every Wednesday like a 7 or 8 hour run. But we appreciate you and love you as long
You
as
guys used to do it all the time.
And we
You and
did,
Jim.
we did. But
Someone should do it for you. You guys deserve it. You're heroes. I want to maybe read from, this is a chapter I haven't read for a long time, but we're on flow state number 8. And in the Deaf Phoenicians, you might have read this recently, Gabriel. If you may not have gotten this far in the book, you've got a lot of books going, I know. But this is chapter 8 from Spirit World, book 1, the Deaf Phoenicians, called Jesus the Rock Star. That's the name of the chapter. I don't know how long it is. I'll read it for a while. If I finish the chapter and it feels right to do that, we'll go with that. But it might not be a full chapter read. It's kind of long. Let's see how I go. And also, this is like 8 chapters in of heavy etymological synchromistic gravy. So we're jumping in a little bit in the middle. If I feel like I need to explain something, I'll pause and do that. Okay. Who can I mute? SB, mind if I pop you? Oh, you got it. Cool. Of all the unique attributes that differentiate men from women, perhaps none are greater than that of the womb. Each womb man is a portal to another world, a vesica piscis that the spiritual fire of man can open for another soul to enter this realm. Some women sync their menstrual cycle up with that of the moon, which is symbolically feminine. The word menstrual can be phonetically men's true all, as in men's true fertility demon, as we've already explained, and all meaning demon etymologically. A demon is a divided or degraded one, a deity of the moon. Degraded, that fits with anode cathode, but making it masculine. Men's true all. It's really man. He might have it backwards here. I don't know. But under these circumstances, a menstrual cycle is a moonstrual cycle, but is also correlated to the mind through phonetics because mens is Latin for mind. Does that indicate that the moon is the mind's true demon? The waning moon is symbolic of sorcery. Is Mary sending her son to fish the souls of men? Or is he her lamb to be sacrificed to save their souls? Ares, the Lamb of God, was known as Gad in ancient Sabaism, who some believe is Shaivism, part of the Vedic tradition, which is where God comes from, because Ares is green language for Rama, which means most high, great, or elevated in Sanskrit. Ares is the Latin word for ram, which comes from the much older word in Egypt, Ares, meaning sun, and thus is connected to Zor, the Lord, God, the rock. That's what Zor means. Zor, you get Zar from that. This is seen in words like Kaf Ares, Kaf being the rock, the Zor, the temples that the temples were built upon. Just like Chan Ares relates to Chan Or being another word for sun, hence or orange, and Chan Aman, from which we get, or no, it's actually Chan Amen, Amon, you say Amen, Chan Amen, from which we get the word cinnamon, Chan Amen. Yeah, that makes sense. Because they're all related to the sun or Apollo, Zeus Amon, Baal Hammon, Pan, Cernunnos, etc. Look up any artifact with a depiction of Jupiter Ammon, and you will see he has ram horns because he was the most high, which corresponds to Ares, the great I am. On is the city of the sun, Heliopolis, and so On, is the fire being. Contemplate the hidden power contained in the phrase, I am On. It is green language for the nature of the symbol of Ares, the hill of Mars, the cerebrum, the I single, I fire being. Regardless of what any deaf Phoenician might tell you, when a Christian finishes a prayer with, through Jesus Christ our Lord, Amen, they've been duped into saying, through Jesus Christ our Lord Ammon, as in Jupiter Ammon, Zeus Ammon, because Jesus Christ is Ammon, the Son, as admitted in the Revelation of St. John, chapter 3, verse 14. And to the messenger of the assembly in Laodicea, write, these things saith the Amen, the witness, the faithful and true, the chief of the creation of God. Why? Because Jesus is Jupiter Zeus, the Amen, or Ammon, the chief of the creation of God, the Most High, Rama, the Ram, Ares, the Lamb of God, the Son. Ares of the East, Arez, is connected to Bel, Baaltis, Baal, and also to Ceres, the Arabian god. And one will notice that the Greek version of Mars is Ares, because Mars rules Ares. They are all symbolical of the sun and fire, which is why the sun is exalted in Ares, the sign of cardinal fire. Another layer of the symbolism regarding the sun being worshipped as Jupiter Ammon, Jesus, is the J that looks like a fish hook because he's the fisher of men. Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter. Note that after we penetrate a deeper layer of Jesus, we will expose why Galileo named Jupiter's fifth moon Io. The J was not used until approximately the 15th or 16th centuries. The Romans used I as the J, which is seen in Jesus, but it comes from something much older. This work is not intended to offend anyone or attack anyone for his or her beliefs. However, to undo the hexes that have been cast upon humanity, and it will undoubtedly make some readers incredibly uncomfortable. The early Christians named their Savior Christ after an ancient name of Bacchus, spelled in Greek as iota or iota, eta, sigma, or as iota, which is eta sigma, which is Jesus, which is IES, yes, JES, which is also pronounced yes, or YES, yes. This is the occult meaning of the English language affirmation of consent, yes. And the common translation that deaf Phoenicians will use to justify their ignorance and maintain their self-imposed slavery is that amen means a declaration of affirmation, so be it, or it is so, which ironically is synonymous with yes. This is because Bacchus is yes, and yes is Jesus, or Jesus, the amen, the witness, the faithful and true, because yes is a pledge of fidelity and truth. Hence, Jesus Christ, our Lord Amen, amen, is the truth. Who is the Father and Son? Dagon and Baal, Zeus and Apollo, Saturn and Jupiter, the angel of life and the angel of death, etc. There is no need to deny that Jupiter, Zeus, Jesus, is the Christ, the Father and Son, and the Christ, the Christos, the oil in the flesh that can only be raised by abstaining from the consumption of flesh. So before you mistake the truth for the deception of the Antichrist, another one of your mythical non-existent entities, you had better do the great work and discover how entrenched in the psyche of man this black magic actually is. Colossians chapter 1, verses 27 through 29. To whom God did will to make known what is the riches of the glory of this secret among the nations, which is Christ in you, the hope of the glory, whom we proclaim, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom, that we may present every man perfect in Christ Jesus, for which I also labor, striving according to his working that is working in me in power. Christ rises and Jesus dies. Unfortunately, Bacchus's ancient name in Greek is used in an even more deceptive way on Christians and pulpit pieces under the occultation of IHS. So the way that Bacchus is spelled in ancient Greek, you'd have to see the Greek letters, but it's 3 characters and it looks like an IHS. The phony Phoenicians and their hexed minions will tell you that IHS means Jesus hominum salvator, Jesus the savior of men. The awful reality is that it is an occult symbol of Bacchus, the god of wine, hence the consumption of the sacramental wine, the blood of Bacchus, the one of great fire, the sun, as confirmed in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 29. For our God is a consuming fire. Even still, the deaf Phoenicians will deny truth till their dying day, for there is no truth left in them. Keep this in mind, because Moloch, one of the deities that these phony Phoenicians murder babies in ritual sacrifice to, is the sun, the Herod, the king, the hero of the skin, Lion of July, Hercules, the universal light, the ruler, the regulator, the monarch of the solar system, Israel, who rules the day. He doesn't kill Rachel's 2 sons, Joseph and Benjamin. He passes through them, or puts them away, because they are Gemini, and the sun's effulgence blots them out during May. The perverted sun worshippers who sacrifice children are yoked by priestcraft sorcery that turns them into religiously insane degenerates. It doesn't help that they are sexually inverse retarded psychopaths due to thousands of years of inbreeding to preserve well-born bloodlines. You have eyes to see. Look at how incredibly ugly they are. They look like demons because they are. As long as you are their concubines, you allow them to hijack your good DNA and conceal their seed in your offspring. Were it not for you doing this, the generational inbreeding wouldn't be able to conceal itself. Make no mistake. There is a stark contrast between a spouse and a wife, just as there is a stark contrast between marriage and joining in holy matrimony. But you idiots keep marrying them and producing offspring for them so you can live a life of luxury at the expense of all their victims. Gemini plays an incredibly significant role in our Western way of life, and the sun's transition through it occurs from May 21st to June 21st. But who rules Gemini? Mercury, who is Woden. Hence, Woden's Day is Wednesday, the day of the week attributed to Mercury, and it is right in the middle of the week, or the week, the week, because Gemini is the June month, which comes from the Latin word jungo, meaning a joint, adjoining, or joint. And since Woden is Mercury, Woden's Day joins the beginning and the end of the week, or the week, week, because the weekend is phonetically the same as the weekend. In the world of elements, mercury is a solvent of metals that can separate gold and silver from the impurities of other ores. Quick means living, so quicksilver, the alchemical name for mercury, is also called argentum vivum in Latin, which means living silver. Mercury is the carrier of the spiritual electricity, the messenger of the gods, the mind fluid that enables the sun and moon, Solomon, the soul of man, to accomplish the great work. The sun is exalted in Aries, the moon is exalted in Taurus, and the twin souls split in Gemini. Mercury utilizes the spiritual fire from Jove, the father of the gods, the giver of all good things, and as you'll find in Latin etymology, as well as that of legalese, merx, or M-E-R-X, the root word of mercury, means goods or merchandise, articles of trade that can be bought and sold. It is evidenced in the Latin phrase merx est quicid vendi potest, meaning merchandise is whatever can be sold. This comes from an even older Greek story in which Hermes, son of Jupiter and Maia, the daughter of Atlas who supported the heavens, which is also the name of the C1 vertebra that supports the skull, was also the messenger of the gods and the father of merchants and thieves. He was the god of oratory, symbolizing the necessity of becoming a good orator so that one can perform the great work of seeking and speaking the truth. And in order to do this, our minds must be filled with mercs, good merchandise through which it can deliver the goods in the fulfillment of expressing itself. How does the week begin? On Sunday, the sun's day. How does it end? On Saturday, Saturn's day. What sign is the sun exalted in? Aries. What sign is Saturn exalted in? Libra. The balancing of the scales corresponds to dusk, when day gives way to night, but on the grander scales, when summer gives way to or begins its descent or fall into winter, but moving to the greater macrocosm, when the spirit succumbs to the illusion of matter and descends into the material world, the fall of man. Looking at the angles of the zodiac, we see that Aries and Libra are beholding each other, which, according to Ptolemy, means that they are of equal power because their days and nights are equal to each other when the sun moves through each sign at different times of the year, and each sign rises and sets from the same locations of the horizon during those periods. They are opposite reflections of each other, just like the sun and Saturn. Why? Because the father is the sun. Dagon is Baal. Saturn is the sun. God is Jesus, etc. Where is Jesus crucified? On a hill called Golgotha. But what does Golgotha mean? The place of the skull in Greek, which is related to the Aramaic word Golgotha and Phoenician or Hebrew word Golgoleth, which both mean skull. What is that synonymous with? Calvaria, the Latin word for skull. The cap of the skull, which is symbolized by the skull cap that the Jews and the popes, cardinals, and bishops wear, and also where the Latin word calvarium comes from, the dome of the skull, and thus where the name Calvary Cross comes from, which Jesus was crucified on, which is why Calvary is also a term that means an experience of extreme suffering, and the anagram of Calvary is cavalry, a group of warriors on horseback, because Castor and Pollux, the twin stars of Gemini, are horsemen, which is why the angel or angle directly across from Gemini is Sagittarius, the satyr, ruled by Jove, Jupiter, the great teacher, the guru, which is why Chiron is a centaur and a great teacher. Gemini and Sagittarius are reflections of each other. Gemini relates to the Vedic mythology of Yama and Yami, the twin siblings who later become husband and wife, which is what the archetype of Adam and Eve evolved from. The Sanskrit word yamati literally means hold or subdue, like what is done to a horse by one who holds the reins, the bridle, and tames animal nature. Ta rus, the unconscious mind, the cerebellum, the seed of war. Why? Because this is the anatomical location where spirit unites with matter, father with mother, fire with water, sun with moon, the temple of Solomon. Positive with negative, the royal marriage, the great work. the alchemical process of turning lead, Saturn, or death into gold, sun, and life. This is because the beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning of the next octave or evolution or involution, depending on which path the soul chooses through free will. This is the crossroads, the 1111 catch-22 nature of our reality, and Tau is the 22nd and last letter in the Hebrew or Phoenician alphabet, hence its association with Saturn, hence the Tau cross, because the cross bends and folds itself up into a cube, a symbol for Saturn, which is why Taurus is the earthly dew cross where the manna descends to form man, the red cross, Taurus. The divine, Tau is cross and Rus is red. The divine man is suspended or crucified on the cross of matter, a tree that is made of nerves where the organism of man is projected from, which corresponds to the word Gemation, because it is allegorical of Gemini, who is ruled by Mercury, because Woden hanged himself on the tree of Yggdrasil, the tree of nerves, for 9 days so he could bring the wisdom of runes to his people. In tarot, the hanged man represents this. The trunk of the tree represents the union of the earth, the heavens, and the underworld, or as Tolkien called it, Middle Earth. In Kabbalah, wisdom, Chokmah, which is male, is gained through understanding, which is Binah, female. And beyond them is Keter, the crown, or will, on the tree of life. What does the crown rest on? The head, the skull, the cavalry, or Golgotha, because man is the microcosm of God. The process of spiritual involution and evolution begins in the mind, the Most High, the Rama, the Ram, the optic thalamus, the eye of providence, the Lamb of God. And as it is above, so it is below. As on earth, so in the sky. Truly, the outward doth from the inward roll, and the inward dwells in the inmost soul. The cavalry cross that Jesus was crucified on, the Kabbalistic tree of life, the sacred fig tree named Ashvatha from the Bhagavad Gita, the Bodhi tree that Buddha meditated under to gain enlightenment, the world tree named Yggdrasil, the esoteric meaning of the Druids, which according to Pliny the Elder's etymology can mean oak tree magi, seers, prophets. The oak is the tree of sacrifice, and the oak leaves on military uniforms marks the soldiers for death or sacrifice. The Epic of Gilgamesh and his quest for the plant of life, which was stolen from him by a serpent 3,000 years BCE, the mystical tree of great merit, the golden tree at Kumbum in Tibet, etc., are all different allegorical stories conveying the same knowledge. They are macrocosms to the different languages people speak. People from various regions who speak different languages can all convey the same message, but each language will sound different and appear to be different. It isn't until someone who speaks multiple languages comes along that we can have our comprehension of this knowledge expedited by their gracious efforts to teach us. For us to remain ignorant in the presence of such gifts is what invokes the hexes of our slavery. That does not mean that the merchandise, the goods, the message is different. They convey the same water of life, the argentum vivum, that the individual bodies convey, just on a larger scale. The fact that people cannot see this and still fight with each other over allegorical stories is evidence that the human race has been severely degraded over thousands of years. Some people may find this fascinating, but it's boring to those who have eyes to see. It's an awful experience to see war and ignorance plague this world, and then be ridiculed by Bolshevik indoctrinated blue stockings every time we make this knowledge public. This is why the secret orders hide it from you. You and your ancestors have proven, time and time again, that you are not worthy of it, that you actually love slavery, and no matter how much you insist you seek freedom, your behavior and the merchandise with which you trade suggests otherwise. The cavalry, Golgotha, is where the nerves from the head branch off to form the body. For the base of the brain is where 75% of the nerves meet and cross, or get crucified. This is seen in just about every culture known to man, for the cross inside man is a microcosm of the solar cross and the zodiac. For those who would like to verify this, search for the Latin cross, the papal cross, the cross of Lorraine, the Greek cross, the Celtic cross, the Maltese cross, St. Andrew's cross, the Tau cross, the Pommet cross, the Botany cross, the Fleury cross, the Evelyn cross, the Moline cross, the Formet cross, the Forche cross, the Crosslet, Quadrate, and Potent crosses, etc. Surely you can see that these are not coincidences. These nerves fork and branch off to the ends of the body's extremities, which we call the left and right, or masculine and feminine aspects of our consciousness. And the cosmology of the heavens also corresponds to the two souls commencing their evolutionary process of becoming one flesh again. Popular instruments and tools that were modeled after this process were the thermometer, barometer, and syringe. Mercury expands and rises based on the vibratory frequencies of heat that it is exposed to, and the tubes represent the spinal canal. The word syringe comes from the Latin word syrinx, meaning a tube, reed, pipe, a reed pipe, or a panpipe, which is why it corresponds to the lungs. A syrinx is also a voice box in birds, a voice organ in birds, which makes it not only correspond to music, sound, and science, but also to the language of the birds, green language. This is why the green man, Cernunnos, is also Pan, who has panpipes, corresponding to the Latin syrinx. Reeds correspond to the lungs, which there are two twin versions of in each healthy body, and Gemini is the sign of the twins in May. But to tie in the rest of this to all the sun gods, Gemini was called Al-Tauaman, which if you break down means the hidden cross. Al, T-A-U, Tau, Aman, A-M-A-N, Al-Tau-Aman, the hidden cross, or the occult cross of God. To quote Bulwer Lytton, all that we propose to do is this, to find out the secrets of the human frame, to know why the parts ossify and the blood stagnates, and to apply continual preventives to the effects of time. This is not magic. It is the art of medicine, rightly understood. And you guys want me to keep going? Because there's good stuff if I keep going. But
Yeah.
It's been going for a while.
I'm down.
All right. That's what alchemy comes from. Al plus chemia, meaning the hidden, the occult. Everything about your existence, or everything about your essence, your being, is occulted by your own creator.
Could you read the name of the book again once more?
Yes, this is the Deaf Phoenicians. Spirit World, The Deaf Phoenicians by Dylan Saccocio.
Thank you.
I could even drop the link really quick because I have it on a bookmark. Yeah, here we go.
You know how we get people that join us midstream and then they don't know the source that we're reading from.
Yeah, it's good to put links out. All right. That's what alchemy comes from. Al plus chemia, meaning the hidden one, the occult. Everything about your essence, your being, is occulted by your own creator. Why? Because it is the honor of God to hide or occult a thing, and the honor of kings to search out a matter. And by learning the occult, one can know thyself and understand the laws of affinities, similia, similibius, curantur, meaning the cure, like cures like. One can know how to raise the Christ, the Christos, the oil, the water of life, the living silver, up the spinal canal to the king dome of God, the Most High, the cerebrum. That's how we inherit the kingdom of God, and why Jesus says in John 14, chapter 14, verse 6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one doth come unto the Father if not through me. Remembering all the different characters we've linked through sun god symbolism, now we see how they also psychologically and chemically correspond to Christ, the Christos, the oil, the water of life that enables the cerebrospinal system to generate and carry the physiochemical electricity through the water of the body. Through the body, the oil or fatty nerve fluids from the sacral ganglia to the cerebrum that, once raised, enable a person to conquer, tame, and subdue yamati, passion, so that the body may exist in a state of purity, harmony, perfection, and equipoise. This is the natural state that humans evolve to if not hampered, obstructed, or thwarted by wrong living, as evidenced in Exodus chapter 23, verse 20. Lo, I am sending a messenger, Mercury, the living silver, the water of life. Lo, I am sending a messenger before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee unto the place which I have prepared. The appearance of the glory of God, the honor of Jehovah, Jove, Yov, Yo, Io, the sun, is later described as a consuming fire on top of the mount. In Exodus chapter 24, verse 17, where else have you seen that fire on top of a mount symbolism? Contemplate it, call it what you will, Mount Olympus, Mount Meru, etc. If you know the sacred science, you can apply it anywhere you go. And if you don't serve God, you can manipulate people with it. This is the causality of our world's slavery. They believe your stories because you didn't explain the allegories to them. And now we have adult children who hate themselves, trying to control others, also known as chaos. This brings us to the twin stars of Gemini, Pollux and Castor. Castor comes from the Latin word castus, meaning morally pure, guiltless, chaste, and pious, which high magi must be in order to be successful. The caster must be castor, castus. He or she must cast or become light, as in illuminated or illuminatus. Francis Bacon admits this. Nature, to be commanded, must first be obeyed. And if you really want to know how the black magi are summoning demons or daemons, jinn, and shayateen, then you should read the Goetia so you can learn how they invoke them in the name of God. What gives them that authority? They know natural law better than you know yourself. The truly powerful are pious, and if they choose to wield that power for selfish purposes, they must be experts at sidestepping the karmic laws of cause and effect by wholly comprehending the way nature works. Castor corresponds to the conscious God mind of Aries, the cerebrum. What is the opposite of the conscious mind? The unconscious animal mind of Taurus, the cerebellum. This corresponds to Pollux, the other polarity of Castor. If we look at the Latin words that compose this name, we see Paul and Lux. Paul means forth and Lux means light. So quite literally, Pollux means to shine forth light or bring forth light. Who rules Taurus? Venus, Lucifer, the bringer of light, because Taurus brings forth Gemini, the twins, Castor and Pollux. What brings forth light? The darkness of rest. It is always darkest and coldest just before dawn. What lures the soul towards mortality? The illusory pleasure of and impurity of the material world, the night, which corresponds to Scorpio, Judas's kiss of death, that is symbolical of sex. Interesting to note that Judas's name corresponds to Ioudas, I-O-U-D-A-S in English. I-O-U is a green language acronym for I-O-U. Io is the sun, from which we get Yov and Jove, but phonetically IOU is pronounced as Jew, where we get Zeus and Jupiter from. Do you see where it leads? If not, keep pulling that thread and you'll expose the inversive brethren. In this sense, we see how the Latin word polio, P-O-L-L-U-O, which translates to I defile, polio, that's making me think of polio, I defile, ties into the real meaning of Pollux, despite what the unconscious definitions of my era say. Luo, L-U-O, is to dissolve, rot, or spoil. And when combined with Paul, we see that it becomes to bring forth or cause rot, defilement, spoilage, or dissolution. Hence the English word pollute. To defile something is to pollute it. To cater to the unconscious animal nature defiles and pollutes the body, mind, and soul, and thwarts spiritual evolution. The process in the yearly cycle of the sun that corresponds to this time is known as the fall, which brings us to one of the most used and recognized symbols of all time, yet the meaning of which is hardly known. The caduceus is derived from both the Latin words cado, meaning I fall or I die, I cease, I decay, as well as cadus, which is a vessel or jar. The body is a vessel for the spirit, and once it's been defiled beyond the capacity to heal, it becomes unsuitable, and so spirit departs. This event is known as death, which is why a dead body, known as a cadaver, shares the same etymology because it is a dead vessel. Just like a thermometer is a vessel that contains quicksilver, mercury, a correspondence to the living silver, the water of life, so too does the human backbone, the human vessel. The caduceus is a symbol that conveys not only the sun's rise and fall between winter and summer, but also the Christos, the oil, the living silver in the spine that facilitates the rise and fall of man's physical and mental involution and evolution, which corresponds to the spiritual involution and evolution of the soul from its departure from the Creator to its ascension back to at-one-ment or atonement. Raising the Christos up the spinal canal and into the cerebrum, where it is crucified on the cross of matter, is what enables this, thus allowing the individual to experience the Christ mind, the conscious mind, the God mind. Mercury originates in Mount Olympus, the cerebrum Aries, where the sun is exalted. He is gold and descends into the cerebellum. Taurus, where the moon is exalted and he becomes silver, and then transitions into quicksilver, the living silver, argentum vivum, the water of life, that moves down the spinal canal as the divine messenger. His winged hat represents the hemispheres of the brain, his winged pole is the tree of life, and the two serpents are the left and right sympathetic nervous systems on each side of the spine that fuse together at the base, corresponding to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's the same stick of Brahm in Hindi literature, rod of Hermes, rod of Moses in Phoenician mythology, and crucifix of Christ in the Christian allegories. It's all beautiful symbolism or different languages for communicating the same knowledge. So when you revisit the Bible story and realize that Joseph and his bright multicolored coat represent Mercury, the mind, overcoming death by dividing his merchandise, his goods, his thoughts, and feeding the other parts of the body their daily bread from heaven, and that the river Jordan and the Euphrates are metaphors for the spinal canal, then you can use this allegorical truth and apply it to your own life. However, it helps when you study all the traditions that you can access, because the more you know, the more you can purify it and syncretize it. Most people will die in their coffin of consciousness, buried in the soils of their own ignorance, hating their fellow human being, merely because his macrocosmic religion of choice didn't use the same microcosmic language to express the same esoteric truth. This is the epitome of being yoked by priestcraft sorcery, and hopefully, by the end of this, you will be prepared to walk a path less traveled, and not accept one word of this work as truth, but use it as an inspiration to seek what the Creator has hidden for you. I'm almost to the part about some rock stuff, so give it a little more gas. We're almost there.
Right on.
If that's cool. You guys cool?
Yeah. Yep.
The water of life makes the creation of the B-A-Y-B-E-E, possible. The wand, like the caduceus, is the spine, where the focus of our minds directs our spiritual electricity. The door of Brahm is the suture of the skull, the chimney opening where Santa Claus, or spirit, leaves and enters the body. This is why the dwelling place of spirit is also Brahmaranda, which is symbolical of the bee, and why the cave of Brahman is also the cave of the bumblebee, the sun, Jupiter, the guru, the master, the magister, the god star, Mithras, etc., comes to the worm in the form of a bee and lays the worm on a lotus blossom that was brought back to God by the angel at sunrise to unite with its creator. It's all a symbolism of the sun. Since a bay is a body of water, the bay bee is a water spirit, a Naki. Jesus, the Lord fish, also symbolizes the water of life, that is the living silver, the argentum vivum, Mercury. It originates in Aries, the Lamb of God, Brahma, Rama, the Most High, Mount Olympus, Mount Meru, and enables the great work as the messenger of the gods, the mind, the rise and fall of man, summer and winter, the quick, living, and the dead, the sun and Saturn, the cycle of necessity. My apologies for the repetitive nature of this work, but it is necessary to remind those who seek to retain this information about how it syncretizes. Let us continue. The shiny bright one is Phineas, hatched from the Orphic world egg by Chronos, time, and Ananke, inevitability or necessity. The Orpheus states, firstborn Phaeton, son of the far shining morning, and the Romans mistook this for being the son of the sun, rather than the sun itself. Phaeton is Phineas, or Phanes, the ram of March, Eros, Cupid, which is why God is love. As the Babylonian Phoenician writer Sanchuniathon wrote over 1,000 years before Christ through the works of Philobiblius, who translated it from Phoenician into Greek. Quote, when the spirit became enamored of his own perfections, he begat Cupid, for Cupid was the beginning of the creation of all things. Notice how both Cupid and Jesus are both the Holy Child, conceived by the Holy Ghost, and then contemplate the writing of Ian Fleming. Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action. How many times will you let the enemy get away with pawning this black magic creation story as historical fact to dictate their whims to you? The foundation, the rock of all their stories is that God is light, love, etc., which is all esoteric, beautiful truth, but they encode that knowledge in stories that only those whose eye is perfect, single, initiated, can comprehend. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 13, it states, and all the things reproved, criticized, or critiqued by the light are manifest, for everything that is manifested is light. Then in John chapter 1, verse 5, it is stated that God is light, and in him is no darkness at all. What is the only thing in this world that you've never seen darkness or the absence of light in? If you say anything other than the sun, you're a fucking liar. The sun is the god star. This is the cornerstone to priestcraft sorcery, the rock, if you will. Why? Because the god in Hebrew, Sir, Zor, or Sir, S-U-R or S-I-R, also has a name which means rock, and it comes from one of the oldest religions of sun worship that there is, the cult of Zoroaster, hence the meaning of Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 31. For not as our rock is their rock, our rock is capitalized, is their rock, and our enemies are judges. Wow, that connects back to Clint. This is because rock is God, Zor. So what they're really saying is that their God is not as our God because it is not Zoroaster, from which is derived from the words Zor and Aster. As demystified, Zor means rock, which is why the sacred rock of Mithraism is called Petra, which also means rock, hence the names Peter, Jew Pater, Jupiter, Jew Peter, Pator, Pater, which means father, and is the reason that Jupiter is literally the godfather, or god of the light and sky. Yes, sir, he is the sun. Yes, Jesus is the son, and sir is God. Thus, the occult meaning of yes, sir, in the context of the deceit, is sun god or Bacchus god. The black magi have given you this hidden knowledge in the form of a gospel, which is the God spell, because it is a hex, certainly not from God, because it is so powerful that you can connect nearly every one of the thousands of dots that compose the grand picture, while those under the hex will cling to every last unconnected dot as their excuse to reinforce and remain under the hex of the gospel. The masses love their slavery as much as they love their black magic. Who is responsible for bringing this hex to the Western world? What was the original name of Tur, the capital of Phoenicia? Tur is by a lot of people pronounced Tyre or Tyre because it's spelled T-Y-R-E, but it's pronounced Sir or Zor or Zur. It's all phonetically the same because it's from the phony phonics of the Phoenician Canaanites. Zoroaster is the god star because Aster means star, and if a star is not in a favorable position, it is said to be a disaster. Hence, all disasters occur when the stars are in unfavorable positions. This spirit is also contained in the name Dis, the Roman god of the underworld. Zoroaster literally translates as rock star. Let that marinate in your mind for a moment. This is why you have rock stars in the entertainment world and companies with the name Rockstar, because they are continuing to hex you with the gospel, the God spell, not to be confused with anything from God. This is the magic of mankind, for it is illusory. I'm going to read two more paragraphs, and we'll stop there. Magia, or magia, was originally a name for the science of astronomy. This is what words like magistrate, a judge of a police court, and magister, the Latin word for master, are derived from. It all comes from the old Akkadian word imga, which means wise, holy, learned, and it was used to title men of knowledge who formed a caste of priest kings or priest masters. Imga gradually morphed to mag, which is where magi in Latin comes from, which corresponds to the Greek word magos, hence the integration of this word into the Bible as the wise men, the masters. They are masters because they create their own paradigms and dictate their whims to others. This invariably makes them slaves to the paradigm because the master is the slave, which is why you cannot appeal to them to change it. They can't. They bound themselves to their iniquity. This is where the word mason comes from. A mason is a builder. He may either work with the matter or energy. But both require mental imagery, imagination. Yeah, there's like 3 more pages of this, but I think I'll go there. He keeps going for that chapter, though. It's heavy flow state connector.
So highlight again the point of Rockstar and Zoroaster.
Well, what led me to want to talk about it was that in the Velikovsky, there's the rocks falling from the sky, being smote by God by falling rocks.
Sounds like Ziggy Stardust or Freddie Mercury or
Yeah,
any other Rockstar character playing that role.
Yeah, they're calling them rock stars.
Mm-hmm.
And how many of the rock stars become fallen?
Most, if not all.
Yeah. My feet are getting cold, you guys. Here's the orange rock and the orange painting.
Wow, nice.
Wow, that connects to the conversation in strange ways, Sean. Did you plan that? The orange.
No, I did not,
sun
but it was
rock.
blowing my
You
mind.
literally are painting the sun rock right now.
Can we full screen the sun rock so we can see
What
that
the
for detail?
Is this real life?
I was messing with my head while you're reading. But yeah, if
I
you want
hope
to put
so.
full
I hope
screen,
so.
I'll put it up here one more time, but my feet are literally getting cold. So there you go.
Okay, there it is.
I'm not very happy with the painting. The rock looks fine to me.
I'm happy with it, bro.
Yeah, buddy.
This is an actual orange.
Reference orange.
In my younger days, I would have just chewed the whole thing up and eaten it, but
Madman.
Not feeling it. Yeah, I'm a bit of a madman, but I'm gonna go inside.
Yeah,
Love
it's
you guys all very much.
Probably about time to wrap it up. I went 3 hours. Go me.
Yeah, that's why I asked you earlier if you're all good, because I know that you love doing this, but I also know that the longer we stay up, we're actually, we're accruing debt if we're not able to sleep tomorrow. I'll be able to sleep in, but I don't know about you guys. So
yeah, could we take it to GemCam and see what Gem's finishing up?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. I'd like to see the
Jim, you're full screened. Dance, monkey, dance.
Dang, that thing looks heavy.
It is. It's a lot of bronze, man.
Wow. I like the Jim Cam. We should have just done this randomly without his knowledge. Blew him up.
Put him up on there.
It wouldn't hurt to just, as long as Jim's working at this level, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to make him full screen. I thought maybe he went to grab the head to hold it up too. But...
No, I've got the head. I just had to turn the air compressor off because it was making noise as we speak. So I just keep stretching out little dents and then closing them up and texturing them, and then there's spots that I don't like. And so I've been doing it over again on some really problematic spots. I think this is the last fix that I'm going to put the head on.
Nice.
The
Looking
skull,
good.
the Golgotha.
The Golgotha.
Didn't quite fit, so I had to kind of stretch out some areas in the neckline, and then
Just
figure out
remember-
exactly where it, the
Just
orientation
remember,
of
man,
it.
yours might already look better than some of the ones that are already installed permanently somewhere. So don't be too hard on yourself.
So true.
I'm serious.
I'm
I
kind
mean,
of fretting about this back leg, because I think the leg is too far in.
Oh, it looks
I
awesome.
either
The
have
back
to-
leg looks perfect, dog.
Bend it out, or
no. Yeah, I wouldn't mess
cut
with
it?
it, man. You
Don't
risk fucking
overcook
up
it.
to do it.
You don't
Yeah,
want
you
to.
don't need. You don't.
Yeah.
The leg looks fine. No one's going to notice that at all. It's a subtlety that the artist understands that the person who spends $10,000 on it doesn't ever notice unless you point it out to them, and even then they don't care. You should have seen Jim made
Yeah,
this beautiful
I hope
9-foot
so.
star-bellied sneetch, and it was so amazing. And he would have sculpted on it for another 2 weeks, but the big boss said, "That's it. It's done."
it's done.
He turned the light off. That
No
keeps
more work.
The wax and the clay hot so that you could still work it. And it's like, oh, what are you going to do? Turn it back on? I'm not going to turn it back on. Not if the big boss
Yeah.
turns it off. Not I.
Do we have any further thoughts on Jesus the rock star?
I've got one really fun sync that I wanted to put forward. It goes back almost a year ago. You guys remember the GameStop debacle?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that event hit the headlines and was making a big splash, there was a very interesting alignment in the standard cosmology that we're given, the NASA cosmology.
Right.
We were told that Jupiter was on the opposite side of the sun. Jupiter had just gone behind the sun,
Okay.
and the moon was on the opposite side of the Earth. And so all of those bodies were in an alignment. So it went the moon, the Earth, the sun, and Jupiter. And
I see. Okay.
if you take the word GameStop in reverse, it spells that alignment in an absolutely mind-boggling way.
Now, did you figure that out yourself, Gabe?
Yes, back when it was happening.
What was happening?
You're a
I know,
master.
That's why I
So-
said I will find and send you a shield if you will sit on it and do the incantations and see what the gods say to you. I'm not kidding. It's an offer, but I don't blame you if you refuse it.
That was a great one. I got to look into that a little deeper. The shield divining. That's a really
Yeah.
cool. That's a cool concept.
That's because Chance had 29 on his cup.
Yeah.
And we started talking about 29, so I started looking. And I don't remember. I think I found it because I went to Marty Leeds Gematria thing and I typed in the number 29 and I just started scrolling
Nice.
just to see if anything popped out. And I think that was one of the words that looked worthy of looking up. Because you guys know how all those games of playing with the word generators, you just end up looking up definition after definition because it generates so many words you've never heard before.
Yep.
Yeah, I was basing it on I Ching hexagram 29, which is the abyssal or
Right.
dangerous depths.
Right.
There was one word I heard mentioned in the reading that I giggled at. I'd never heard the word before. The word was I heard it pronounced kumbum, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I heard
Yeah, no.
kumbum. Could we get a definition before the end of the night on kumbum?
Yes.
Did I say it correctly? Did I pronounce it correctly? I don't know.
I think so.
It's
I think
it's
how it's
spelled with
pronounced now.
a K instead of it's come with a K. Kind of like the gas stations around
KUM?
here.
Like
Missouri,
come and go?
KMN, KUM, come and go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
What is the definition of KUMBUM?
Well, there's a monastery it's a Buddhist word. I need to find the origin of the word. Let me look it up in the book, see if there's a little more context around it. Okay, so kumbum is a place in Tibet. That's what he was saying. KUMBUM. So yeah, where a monastery is.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. There's
Or no, what? You know what? Maybe okay, I think I see what it is. So in Tibet, kumbum is the name for the world tree, perhaps. I think that was the context here. The golden tree. The
there was a
kumbum.
hold on. You're
was
telling me Crowley was right?
There
Yeah,
was
right?
a definition under the word outbelch, and the source gives us this language. He could out-eat, out-drink, and out-belch any monk from Talishinhunpo to Kumbum. I think that's from Clutterbuck, a comedy in 3 acts. Ben Wolf, maybe. Trying to find out where this Kumbum monastery is. Is it part of China or Tibet?
You're risking sounding like Bob Dylan. I just wanted to warn you.
Oh my gosh, there it is.
It's meant to represent the cosmos in its architectural design. The Giants Kumbum.
Yeah.
The Giants Kumbum. It's weird. Here, we'll look at some of the art gallery here.
The Giants Kumbum. You're not going to
It's
jump into full-blown
Gyants Giantes Kumbum, or Gyantse Giants Kumbum, Giants Kumbum. I don't know how you say it.
You said it perfectly. This is what the audience was waiting for.
Kumbum Champa Ling Monastery, also called Ta'ir Temple, a Tibetan Gampa in Lusar. I can't say the rest of that name.
Terra statue here.
And if you're listening out there, don't make us make the Kumbum memes ourselves. We're making a lot of memes already. You guys can make some memes, okay?
What's wild is on the We Keep Idea page, the photography of this place is from 1993. That's bizarre. You'd think that We Keep Ideas would have better photography.
Are we talking about the same Kumbum monastery, or are there many like the Come and Go franchise?
If that's a monastery, they must worship at the altar of sugar and booze and tobacco.
We could start a competing franchise and call it Kumbum and Go. You could do a different kind of business out the back door, if you know what I mean. All right, I really am logging off now.
It's a good time to do it. We should wrap up.
I love you all with all of my hearts, and I'll see you sometime soon for sure. So
much love, SB.
Yeah, buddy. Read the Spirit World books, guys, if you were into that last part.
Yes. Somebody in the chat said he already ordered it.
Nice.
Desert. I think he's going to love it. It's right up his alley.
Yep. There's 3 books and a 4th one coming. Yeah, if you read it in order and have all the context and take your time, it goes really well. I
really just needed the context of the Kumbum. And
I'm glad we checked it out.
In the Tibetan language, Kumbum Monastery is called Gongben, which means 10,000 figures of Buddha.
It's an aggregate. Does Wikipedia count as adversaria?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I would think it does. Modern digital adversaria.
Yeah. I went down a quick little rabbit hole once researching one of the editors of Wikipedia, and it was just jackassery. That basically, giving themselves all these credentials that have zero meaning. I mean, absolutely pages and pages of empty self-congratulating was basically all I could find.
This has been quite a weave, gentlemen. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, man. Much love, Jim.
Thank you very much, Chance. That was fun.
My
man.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Love hanging out
Thanks
with
for
you
coming,
guys.
Gabe.
Yeah, buddy. Good luck with your project, Jim.
This has
Oh,
been
thanks.
a presentation of Weaving Spiders Welcome, and we will return on Saturday weaving for another weave like we've done tonight. That's on the channel on YouTube, Weaving Spiders Welcome. Make sure to subscribe to youtube.com/c/Weaving Spiders Welcome, and we'll keep those in the chat as well as in the comments below. Thank you, everyone, for providing timestamps to interesting moments. We'll make sure to put some of those in the comments below after this video is processed by the AI.
I'm going to
Thank
play
you.
the music.
Nice. Thanks for hosting, Chance.
Oh, yeah, it's my
Yeah,
pleasure.
thanks for hosting.
Yeah,
I don't know if I have the music handy. Never mind.
Remember, there was a vibrant earlier in the evening too, so this is kind of the after party for a vibrant on the InnerVerse podcast YouTube channel. Chance has been at it for a few hours, so we gotta say goodnight and let him rest. So
I know, it's hard to leave.
For Saturday night.
I've been keeping up later and longer. You guys are hard to tear away from. We get so much covered. I learned so much from this. All right. Bye-bye.
The Kumbum Monastery is rich in its
Bye, guys.
fascinating arts. The famous butter sculptures, the barbolas, and the murals are considered to be the three most unique arts of suburb craftsmanship in the Kumbum Monastery. Good night.
Good night.